Chapter 165. Hey, why do you look constipated? Did you eat too much guanine clay? At the Spirit Creek town under the Spirit Sword Mountain, the lady boss of the Rue family and was always so hospitable. And the solemn-looking guest also knowingly replied, "Idiot, get lost." The lady boss was suddenly inexplicably surprised. "Guest, are you talking human language just now? I don't understand you at all." The guest was too lazy to pay attention to her nonsense. He went straight to the counter and laid out 9 copper coins. 2 bowls of wine, a stack of fennel beans, plus a pot of braised pork, a bowl of spicy soup, a tray of soup dumplings, and, "Hey, you just gave me 9 copper coins, okay?" Although it was noisy, not long after, the table was filled with all kinds of dishes. Although most of them were just home-cooked dishes, they were cooked by the lady boss and had a different taste. "Tell me, why do you look so serious, as if you've been raped?" Diske Wang Lu took a sip of wine and said, "The semi-final is over." "Oh, you won or lost?" Wang Lu sneered. "Stupid question. With my IQ and means, how could I lose? Although I always feel that there's a problem with your reason for winning, let's put it aside for the time being. Since you've won, what are you worried about?" "The final is a bit troublesome," Wang Lu calmly said. "Although I've already guessed that Luli would win, I didn't expect her to be so strong." The lady boss indifferently smiled. "Of course she's strong. She entered the sect earlier than you, and her cultivation time is longer than yours. Moreover, she doesn't have a pain-in-the-ass spirit root that drags her down. She's treated as a genuine successor disciple, so it would be strange if she's not strong. In any case, you've stumbled all the way to the final, so you should just give up. No one can say anything about it. It's a big deal, so I have no way to retreat." The lady boss was curious. "It's a big deal? You also know that this competition is a competition between Lingjian School and 10,000 Arts Sect. Internally, it's a competition for the lead disciple. According to the previous rules, as long as you win the final victory, you can enjoy at least 10 years of lead disciple authority. Otherwise, you can only enjoy the treatment of the honorary lead disciple, which is quite different from the genuine one. And then? The authority of the chief disciple is very important to me," Wang Lu said. "According to the explanation of the chief disciple of the Heavenly Sword Hall, the chief disciple of a sect has more privileges than a true disciple. One of the most important privileges is the immunity against the master. To put it simply, the chief disciple of a sect is under the direct control of the sect master and is not restricted by the sect master." The lady boss was smart and immediately understood. "Wang Wu can't control you, right? It's only the duty of a master, but not the authority of a master. What should be taught still needs to be taught, but you can't order me around as a master. Isn't that great?" The lady boss asked. "Anyway, you don't usually treat her as your master. What's the difference between having or not having this immunity?" "Of course I have. Usually, I'm not respectful to Wang Wu because she herself doesn't care whether I'm respectful or not. If I insist on doing things according to the sect's rules, I will definitely be pranked by the old virgin Fang He." "Oh." The lady boss was even more confused. "What does Wang Wu want to do to you?" "I think she's actually very good to you." "It's indeed good. Therefore, although it's not obvious, I really treat her as my master. However, this harmonious relationship between master and disciple has been greatly shaken. Under the temptation of money, Wang Wu has a tendency to go crazy." "The temptation of money?" Wang Lu said. "I just made a windfall, earning more than 40 million spirit stones, so, what the more than 40 million spirit stones?" The lady boss was so shocked that she slapped the table. "Big local tycoon. Let's be friends, okay? See, the power of money can make women crazy. Even Sister Ling is not immune, so do I need to say anything about my master?" Wang Lu sighed, took a bite of food and drank a mouthful of wine. "You can guess what cruel things she did to me." The lady boss thought for a moment. "Did she torture you? Do you think I'm afraid of torture? Then, did she threaten you not to teach me the follow-up method of non-phase method? At worst, I'll create it myself. With her IQ, she can create her own non-phase method, so naturally I can do it. Letting her teach me is nothing more than saving me some trouble. I can't think of anything else. I've never been able to predict the lower limit of your non-phase peak." Wang Lu smiled wryly. "I also can't predict it. She proposed to me." Puff. The lady boss sprayed out the wine that she just drank. "She proposed to you?" "Yes, in order to divide my property." Wang Lu was extremely helpless. "Although I clearly refused her, she soon planned to use her master's privilege to arrange a marriage. Moreover, with her personality, I'm worried that she would take advantage of my closed-door training to forcibly defile me." What they forcibly defile? The lady boss felt that her worldview had once again been refreshed. She could not help but raise her glass to express her admiration. You non-phase peak master and disciple are really a perfect match. In short, in order to keep my innocence I had to make a difficult choice. Castrate yourself? Well, this time, it was Wang Lu's turn to spurt out his wine. Sister Ling, your lower limit is a lot deeper. One who keeps close to ink will be stained black. In short, what exactly did you do? Wang Lu said, I just won the money plus the principal, all of it on the outcome of the next match. Of course, according to the rules, I can only bet on my own win, temporarily putting an end to her thoughts. Such a large amount of money, aren't you afraid that there will be a problem? If you don't dare to accept this bet, then there's no need to open the mysterious Sky Mansion. Wang Lu said, for the next match, the mysterious Sky Mansion's interest is quite high. After seeing Lu Li's brilliant sword heart, there are many people who are willing to bet on her. Oh, in short, now you have to win. Yes, if you lose, not only would you lose your face in the Lingjian school, you would also be pointed at as the disgrace of the successor disciple. Moreover, you would instantly turn from a local tycoon into a poor ghost, a life worse than death. The lady boss nodded in agreement. I understand very well. Since more than 5 years ago when I earned 10 million silvers a day, alas, these past few years have been really hard. Wang Lu said, in addition, I also promised that as long as I can win, I will give half of the money to Wang Wu. Right now, she and I have a common interest, so I only need to wholeheartedly seek victory. I don't need to worry about being tarnished at night. It feels like a very sad master-disciple relationship. Oh, after this meal, I'm going to do the hell training. There are still 2 days before the final, so the outcome will be decided in this match. I came to say hello in advance. If Sister Ling has any super awesome card in your hand, quickly show it to me, it's still not too late. *T, what card do I have? For example, the dried sweet potato that has been stored for many years, the secret treasure that has been guarded for a long time, waiting for a fated person, or the peerless divine method that has been cultivated for many years, specially used to impart to others. Do you have any of these? Eat your meal. After leaving the Ru family inn in disappointment, Wang Lu returned to the non-phase peak. There was no more time to delay. After witnessing Lu Li's brilliant sword heart, Wang Lu was very clear that he had no chance of winning. Although by relying on various means he had successively defeated the powerful Zhao Jiangyuan and Yi Feifei, but Lu Li was a completely different level of opponent. Not only did she have unparalleled explosive power, the ever-changing human sword unity technique, but she also had a spotless brilliant sword heart. In many people's eyes, Lu Li was a naive fool. She was simple-minded, ignorant of worldly affairs, and her brain seemed to be lacking a brain. She could always make stupid actions that people didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Moreover, she simply couldn't be corrected. This point, during the preparation period for the exchange between the two sects, Wang Lu has already done a test. At that time he threw a book called Peerless God Sword Record on the path that Lu Li must pass. There was a trap in the book that could spray out a strong knockout drug. The drug's efficacy was carefully calculated according to Lu Li's physique. Even if she had a clear physique, she still wouldn't be immune. For most people with normal intelligence, they wouldn't touch this kind of obvious trap. As a result, when Lu Li saw this book, she happily jumped up and down. Peerless God Sword Record. I want to see it, I want to see it. Then she opened the book and a pink mist sprayed all over her face. The girl swayed a few times and then fell to the ground. After waking up, Lu Li was severely scolded by her master Zhou Ming. Remember, this so-called sword record in the middle of the road is simply a trap. Never touch it in the future. Lu Li earnestly nodded, indicating that she firmly remembered it. Thereupon Wang Lu wrote another book called No Trap Peerless God Sword Record and threw it on the road. Seeing it, Lu Li pondered for a moment and said, Master said, I must never touch a sword record with a trap. However, since there's no trap in this book, then there's no problem. Then the girl resolutely opened the book. Through that test, Wang Lu fully understood the level of Lu Li's intelligence. If he used comprehensive means, he had too many ways to defeat his opponent. However, after witnessing the fight between Lu Li and Zhang Zai, he knew that in the arena tricks were meaningless. That day she called out the 12 flying swords and used 11 of them to force Zhang Zai into a desperate situation, forcing him to use the Annihilation Thunder to perish together with him. As for the remaining flying sword, she had already guided it to a safe place. At the moment of Zhang Zai's self-explosion, she used the method of human sword unity to successfully transform the flying sword into a safe place, thus avoiding the impact of the self-explosion. Although the tactic was simple, to be arranged in a flash, how could it be possible for a brainless person to do it? Luli was not stupid. At least in the fight, she was more astute than the vast majority of people. Her brilliant sword heart eliminated all distracting thoughts and cut off all interference. Her sword heart pointed straight to the way to victory, and her temperament was almost flawless. Wang Lu's most proficient psychological attack could be used to toy with Luli like a pet dog. However, once Luli entered the fighting state, psychological attack would be meaningless. In the final, the only way to win was by true ability. There was no shortcut. So, are you ready for the special hell training, my beloved disciple? On the non-phase peak, a woman in white sneered. Next to her, the tall seventh elder Ao Guanhai nodded toward Wang Lu. Chapter 166. Brilliant Sword Heart is not an invincible method. Its shortcomings and advantages are equally prominent. Although its attack power is strong, its defensive power is insufficient. Therefore, the basic idea of the 10,000 Arts Sex Kids is not wrong. However, their mistake is that they underestimated the ever-changing Brilliant Sword Heart. They were anxious for quick results, vainly trying to determine the outcome in the first round. As a result, they were caught off guard by that little girl Luli. The little girl actually doesn't have that complicated mind. It's just that her intuition told her how to win, so she did it. However, the 10,000 Arts Sex Waste can't even defeat the little girl's intuition. On the non-phase peak, the fifth elder, who was dressed in white as usual, revealed a rare serious expression. Actually, from another point of view, they are not far from victory. The key to determine the outcome is whether they can withstand the full power of little Lu Li's sword. If Lu Qiankai can withstand the weak water sword, the two evil ghost talismans are enough to suppress the opponent. And if Zhan Zai can withstand the combined attack of the 12 flying swords, and then use the annihilation thunder to hurt the enemy instead of exploding himself, he can also win. Unfortunately, they knew that they could not withstand Lu Li's brilliant sword heart, so they tried every possible way to hide, to escape, and to resort to trickery, and then, hee little Wang Lu, with so many martyrs dying in front of you, you should know what to do, right? Wang Lu said, give up the wishful thinking and directly withstand the pressure of the brilliant sword heart. However, now it seems like a head-on confrontation is simply courting death. Even without the 12 flying swords, a single fiery sword can break my sword defense. This non-phase method is really not good enough. Damn, it's obviously because your cultivation base is not enough. Don't slander the cultivation method. I'm a stage lower than senior brother Zhou Ming, but I'm not afraid of him. Right now, your biggest problem is that your foundation is too weak, and your magical power level is too low. If your cultivation base is similar to Lu Li, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Wang Lu said, then the most urgent thing is to improve your cultivation base, so you called seventh uncle? Ao Guanhai shook his head and said, I do have quite a few medicinal pills to raise cultivation, but wanting to make my cultivation advance by leaps and bounds in a short 2 days, this is really not easy. No matter how strong the medicinal pill is, the medicinal effects need a process to take effect. Moreover, forcefully increasing one's cultivation with the power of medicinal pills might cause one's foundation to become unstable. Wang Lu didn't care about this at all. My cultivation is unstable after a sudden attack. I'm born with a poor balance. You can rest assured and use the medicine. It's best if I can get the king pill quickly. His master sneered, instant king pill? Sure, the sky demon disintegration pill. After consuming it, one will have the cultivation of the king pill for the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. After the effects of the pill wear off, one's body will explode and one's soul will scatter. Do you want one? Listen, you only have 2 days, so the power of the elixir is essential. However, you can't expect to stand on the same platform as Lu Li with just 1 or 2 elixirs. As a successor disciple, she has eaten a lot of elixirs. So, therefore, you can only take the evil path. However, since it's an evil path, there will definitely be side effects. You have to consider it carefully. Master Wang Wu's expression was unusually serious, which made Wang Lu feel quite unaccustomed. Tell me about it. Big Heart Demon Oath. His master coldly said the answer. Make an exchange with the Big Heart Demon Oath. Pay the price in exchange for the promotion of strength. Big Heart Demon Oath can be used like this? Wang Lu was surprised. This was not a cult sacrifice. Even if he had the intention to make a deal, he had to have a trading partner. Pay the price in exchange for strength, but who would provide the strength? How do I make the oath? It's very simple. You swear that, from now on, you will never take the initiative to hurt people with the immortal cultivation method. Wang Lu immediately frowned. Won't hurt people with the immortal cultivation method? Yes, to the extreme. Even if the enemy who killed your father is standing in front of you, you must not use the immortal cultivation method to inflict any harm. Otherwise, the heart demon will enter your body, and your primordial spirit will collapse. Wang Lu seemed to be lost in thought. With his excellent perception of immortal cultivation, he immediately understood the key point. Well, using this extreme oath to impose on yourself, forcing yourself to focus on defense, thereby improving your defensive ability? Although I still can't understand the specific operation principle, in general it's a good deal. Non-phase method originally has no offensive power. Who said there's no offensive power? His master lightly interrupted. You have to use your brain when you speak. Wang Lu was startled, but then he immediately realized. So you've also made the oath. Because of the constraint of the big heart demon oath, you don't have the means to attack. Therefore later on non-phase method continued to focus on defense, because developing an offensive method simply doesn't make sense. Yes, it's not that non-phase method can't hurt people. In fact, after the non-phase sword bone helped you break the shackles of the spirit root, theoretically, you can already cultivate a method with strong offensive power. And when you've successfully reached the foundation establishment stage, your method can also be rounded and natural. Non-phase method can be considered as a good inclusive platform. With your aptitude and perception, it's not impossible for you to cultivate those amazingly powerful immortal cultivation method in the sect. When the time comes, being invincible like Lu Li is not just a delusion. Wang Lu chuckled. Master, you don't have to use these words to test me. Not to mention others, even if I now cultivate brilliant sword heart, can it let me win in 2 days? Yes, it's good that you have this awareness. With your intelligence, you should be able to clearly understand how much you will sacrifice once the oath is established. You and I are different. You have a choice, there's no need to make yourself so passive. And with Wang Lu's intelligence, he immediately realized that there was a considerable secret behind his master's non-phase method. You didn't have a choice in the past? Speaking of which, when I used the nameless sword, indeed. Okay, we'll have time to talk about my gossip later. Now tell me your choice first. Wang Lu pondered for a moment. Once the oath is established, you can't take the initiative to hurt people. But can the blade armor be used? In theory, the nameless sword can't be used. The big heart demon oath can't be played with words. However, with your temperament, you shouldn't be restricted by the oath. But the nameless sword is your only means. His master smiled. Of course, if you use your brain, there's also a flexible way. At least you can curse people. Verbal violence is not restricted. Haha, since there's still room for flexibility, then there's no need to hesitate. Let me take the oath. Junior brother, bring me the spirit congealing drug. For the time being, let this kid's primordial spirit condense into an illusory body and make the big heart demon oath. The big heart demon oath was, in theory, a skill that could only be used by Shudan stage or higher level cultivators. However, for the 5 unique sect, there were always ways to make an exception. Although the reputation of the spirit congealing drug was not that great, its effect was enough to be ranked as a high-rank panacea. After swallowing the spirit congealing drug, Wang Lu suddenly felt that his mind was filled with light. His primordial spirit quickly condensed into an illusory body, and then continued to turn into a real body until it reached the half-illusory half-real state. According to the standard of Lingjian school, this was the strength of the primordial spirit of a Shudan stage cultivator. Although the effect could only last for less than a breath, it was more than enough to make the big heart demon oath. The big heart demon oath was not difficult to make. Previously, his master had explained the key points, and Wang Lu had also practiced it several times. At this time he easily operated the power of his primordial spirit, which was 100 times more powerful than before, and successfully condensed the oath. Although the oath was named after the big heart demon oath, when he made the oath, his primordial spirit in his inner mansion was calm. Only a circle of colorless and invisible ripples spread out from the center of his jade mansion, sweeping through all living things in his jade mansion, and then disappeared at the edge. During this period, there was neither the interference of the big heart demon oath, nor any other strange phenomenon. However, Wang Lu was very clear that after the oath was established, if he really dared to violate it, then lightning and thunder, and the wailing of hundreds of ghosts would be considered as light punishment. Basically, he would die without a doubt. After the oath was made, Wang Lu slowly opened his eyes. Just now, when his primordial spirit bloomed, the feeling that everything was under his control had dissipated, but the effect of the oath remained, engraved in his inner mansion, his body, his primordial spirit, and everywhere else. As Wang Lu moved his body, the bones all over his body issued a crackling sound, and his whole body had undergone considerable changes. After that, you still have 2 days to digest the benefits brought to you by the Big Heart Demon Oath. At the same time, you have to change your tactics. From now on, any initiative to attack must be absolutely prohibited. Generally speaking, if a genuine Shudan stage cultivator makes an oath, his primordial spirit is enough to firmly restrain his own actions. However, if you use the power of medicinal pills, there is a risk of accident. But for you it should not be a problem, right? Wang Lu nodded his head. Rest assured, the quality of a professional adventurer is here. Good, then let's start the next round, actual combat. As soon as his voice fell, the seventh uncle's blue sea-tide sword directly chopped at him. Time was limited, and Ao Guanhai, who knew the style of the non-phase peak, did not waste any time. Moreover, Wang Lu seemed to be prepared. The sword of Mount Kuan came out and blocked the attack of his martial uncle. The moment the two swords collided, Wang Lu was surprised. His martial uncle, of course, did not go all out, but the power of this sword strike was still at the level of Shudan stage. If it were in the past, he would have to suffer some internal injuries to withstand it. But now he only felt that his whole body was shaken. Unexpectedly, in such a short period of time, the Big Heart Demon Oath had already begun to play a miraculous effect. Don't be too happy, this sword strike is only 50% of Lu Li's level. In the next 2 days you still have a lot of work to do. The seventh elder sighed. The sword in his hand moved again, and this time the power was even higher. Ah, good. Wang Lu did not show any weakness. Not only did he successfully block the attack with the sword of Mount Kuan, he also brazenly shook the sword bone, urging the nameless sword to return the damage. Such a fierce move surprised the seventh elder. Wang Lu, this child, has just made the Big Heart Demon Oath, so he should be extra careful against this kind of damage-returning skill. Yet he actually dared to make his move. However, if he didn't have this kind of temperament, there was no need to fight in 2 days' time. It would be better to admit defeat in advance. Lu Li's fierceness was difficult to understand for those who haven't personally fought against her. In these 2 days, even if Wang Lu carried out the special training with this kind of life-risking mentality, his odds of winning were still no more than 30%. And this was the seventh elder's infinitely optimistic estimate. After all, there was a gap of several years between Wang Lu and Lu Li's cultivation time. And for these peerless geniuses, several years of time was enough to open an insurmountable gap. Humph. Before long, Wang Lu was shaken by the blue tide sword and suffered an internal injury. However, this was just the beginning. Damn it, I'm bleeding from playing with a black uncle. How unlucky. Chapter 167. Eldest brother, drink a cup of water. While Wang Lu was struggling in his hellish special training, inside the pink house of the Spirit Pool Peak, the atmosphere of the 10,000 Arts Sect Exchange team was bleak. Zhan Zai's defeat in the semi-final was beyond everyone's expectation. The rare talent that was regarded as the hope of the sect for the next hundreds of years actually lost. He lost to a silly, adorable girl whose cultivation time was similar to his, yet her background was not as good as his. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, no one would believe it. The defeat in this fight had brought a devastating blow to the morale of the disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect. They couldn't even remember how they returned to the pink house from the Cloud Tread rooftop. They only remembered that when they came back to their senses, the faces of the 5 martial brothers were ashen and speechless. In the end, Hai Yunfan's mentality was the best. After a sigh, he even forgot about his own tragic loss of hundreds of thousands of spirit stones and acted as the team's inspiration. He was not in a hurry to discuss the exciting yet tragic battle. Instead, he poured a cup of hot water for each of his senior brothers and senior sisters, fetched a few plates of snacks, and chatted about some trivial matters to ease the atmosphere. However, the effect was not very good. Everyone seemed to have suffered too much of a blow, and it was no longer possible for simple methods to work. And just as Hai Yunfan was considering whether or not to ask for help, he heard his eldest brother open his mouth. This time I have failed everyone. Zhan Zai's voice was heavy, but it still had the power to influence people's hearts. Yi Feifei and the others who were in a daze were awakened. I lost wholeheartedly. The opponent's strength is stronger than me, so I have nothing to say when I lose in the fight. In the past few years I've been complacent in the sect, thinking that although the world is big, there are only a few who can be called my opponent. I'm really a frog in a well. While saying that, Zhan Zai shook his head at his junior brothers and sisters who tried to comfort him. After the fight, I have repeatedly deduced over 100 times in my mind. Even if Lu Li doesn't come up with a new card relying solely on her current ability in 100 fights, I can only win about 10 at most. There's a real gap between the two sides. I really don't know how she practices. Actually, there was no need for Zhan Zai to say all this. As long as one witnessed the fight, he or she could see that Lu Li's strength was actually a notch higher than her opponent's. Her ever-changing brilliant sword heart perfectly covered the lack of defense. Moreover, during the fight, her mind was clear, unaffected by any interference, simply impeccable. Although Zhan Zai was only one move away from losing, the distance of this one move was real and not something that could be attributed to luck. However, realizing this actually made people even more discouraged. Everyone came here with the mentality of crushing the opponent, but now they were crushed on the stage. Their eldest brother even gave up on himself. For a time, even the pride of the 10,000 Arts sect that was imprinted in their bones was shaken. They originally thought that this generation of disciples was enough to stand at the top of the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions, but now they saw that there were still people at the top. It was as if they saw an unknown sky that they had never thought of, which made them fearful. However, at this moment, Zhan Zai revealed a smile that reassured his junior brothers and sisters. It was the smile that whenever they encountered difficulties in the immortal cultivation sect, as the eldest brother, he would bravely step forward and reveal that smile. 10,000 Arts sect is not an arrogant and lawless barbaric sect. We are scholars, and what is the academic principle? His junior brothers subconsciously answered, to discover the unknown, to understand the unknown, to predict the unknown. That's right. Therefore, for those who are stronger than us, we should hold an exploratory attitude and take the initiative to learn and improve ourselves. Therefore, I'm going to look for Lu Li to exchange her experience in immortal cultivation. Junior brothers and sisters, have a good rest. Zhan Zai said with a sinking voice, turned into a flash of lightning, and went toward the direction of the brilliant peak, leaving behind a group of dumbfounded disciples. Zhan Zai rode the flash of lightning straight toward the brilliant peak. However, halfway there, Zhan Zai's complexion changed. In front of him, his master Yuan Chaoyun's magical power fluctuation faintly came, blocking his way. This was his master's silent reminder that this road was blocked. Zhan Zai was full of annoyance, thinking, Master is actually at the brilliant peak? Moreover, why would he stop me? This is such a good opportunity to learn and exchange. As the master, how could he stop his disciples' sincere desire to learn? On the other side, on the brilliant peak, Yuan Chaoyun shook his head and smiled. I've let the several elders see my good-for-nothing disciple. In front of him were the Lingjian school's 2nd elder Lu Xian, 4th elder Zhou Ming, and 9th elder Hua Yun. After the 2 semi-finals, the 10,000 Arts sect's defeat was already set in stone. Their original arrogance suddenly vanished, and the matter of being asked by the Shengjing sect naturally never happened. The exchange between the two sects was finally on the right track. Yuan Chaoyun's trip to the brilliant peak was also a goodwill gesture on behalf of the sect. Although he himself was also angry among the 3 elders, only he had enough EQ to handle this situation. If it were the other 2, they would definitely fight with someone on the brilliant peak. The topic of Yuan Chaoyun's exchange was the sect's education of their disciples. Once they talked about it, Yuan Chaoyun found out that he had indeed underestimated the Lingjian school. These elders might not have the same cultivation base as him, but in terms of educating their disciples, they each had their own strengths, which benefited him a lot. Moreover, he had to admit that their attitude was better than his. Lu Xian said, Elder Yuan is too modest. Zhan Zai, that child, has only cultivated for 8 years, yet he has already comprehended the 10,000 methods comprehension technique and cultivated the immortal level method 5 Thunder Sutra to this level. His aptitude and perception are very few in the present age. The sect indeed has high hopes for him. Since that event 17 years ago, the 9 regions has seen an endless stream of immortal cultivation geniuses. However, there are only a few who can truly lead the future of the 5 uniques. Our 10,000 Arts sect is already quite fortunate to have Zhan Zai, but we didn't expect that the harvest of your Lingjian school is even higher than ours. Yuan Chaoyun said with some envy, right now Lingjian school is ranked last among the top 5 sects, but with such a rare talent like Lu Li after 1 year, it should be able to advance 1 or 2 places. The several elders of Spirit Sword sect didn't comment on Yuan Chaoyun's so-called ranking last among the 5 uniques. However, Zhou Ming said, that child Lu Li, although her aptitude and perception are good, she doesn't have the temperament to take on big responsibilities. If we really put the future of the sect on her, I'm afraid Lingjian school will be finished in 100 years. Master, Lingjian school will be finished? While speaking, Lu Li, who was wearing a long skirt, floated over. Her big eyes flashed with naivety. Then what about the future meals? Zhou Ming snappily scolded, "You idiot, you only know how to eat. Go back and practice your flying sword incarnation for another 2 hours. You're not allowed to come back before we finish talking." The girl's small face immediately drooped. "I know." After dealing with Lu Li, Zhou Ming wryly smiled. "I've let Elder Yuan see a joke." Yuan Chaoyan, with a face full of envy, looked at Lu Li's receding back. Pure heart, whole body like colored glass. With this kind of aptitude, no wonder she can inherit the ancient inheritance. However, I think this brilliant sword heart method is also very different from the ancient inheritance. The rumored several weaknesses of brilliant sword heart have been cleverly made up. Zhou Ming smiled but didn't say anything. Yuan Chaoyan then said, "However, I understand what Elder Zhou said. With such a temperament she can certainly advance triumphantly on the immortal cultivation path, but as a sect leader she's incompetent. So, does your sect plan to seriously cultivate Wang Lu?" When mentioning Wang Lu, the several elders' complexion became somewhat unnatural. Yuan Chaoyan said, "Compared to Lu Li, Wang Lu is indeed quick-witted and ever-changing, but his method is, after all, not the right path. Moreover, his cultivation base is also a lot worse. Although the first 2 times he won by a fluke, in all fairness, that kind of method that simply emphasizes defense and survival is not the right path, right?" The several elders' complexion became even more strange. The more Yuan Chaoyan said, the more curious he became. "I heard that Wang Lu's master is from Non-Phase Peak, but the master of Non-Phase Peak only has King Pill cultivation base. I think, since Wang Lu has such a strong point, even if his immortal cultivation qualification is not the best, there's no need to hand him over to a good-for-nothing master, right? Not to mention Wang Lu's talent is outstanding and later on he can take on great responsibility." "Humph, you're the good-for-nothing." Hearing Yuan Chaoyan slandering her senior sister, the 9th elder Hua Yun was immediately annoyed. "No matter what, you're also one of the elders of the 5 uniques. How could you look at people based on their cultivation base? What's wrong with King Pill? I'll still beat you until you look for your teeth on the ground." Yuan Chaoyan was annoyed, but when he saw Hua Yun's face, which was full of anger but didn't lose its outstanding beauty, his anger immediately dissipated. Perhaps that woman in white really has some special skill that I can't see? However, blindly pursuing defense in order to survive was too vexing. Even in the 10,000 Arts sect, the pure defensive method has always been unpopular. Perhaps the 5th elder really had a way to resist the spell of a deity stage elder with King Pill cultivation base, but to say that she could beat him until he looked for his teeth on the ground was a joke. Not to mention that although the 9 regions was big, who dared to say that their defense was foolproof? One day someone would find a flaw and when that time came, there would be no room for mediation, so why bother? It was a pity that Wang Lu, that child, regardless of his spirit root qualification, with his perception alone, it was enough to make Yuan Chaoyan cherish his talent. But now he had embarked on an evil path. If he hadn't obtained the successor disciple status, he really wanted to poach him into the 10,000 Arts sect. Not to mention, in the 10,000 Arts sect, whether it was the disciples or the elders, they were generally weak in dealing with people. Thus, they really needed a quick-witted and ever-changing person. Currently, the sect leader was more optimistic about Hai Yun Fan, but compared with Wang Lu, Hai Yun Fan seemed to be lacking a bit. However, the strange thing was, it was said that not long ago Wang Lu looked for the people of the mysterious Sky Mansion to make a bet on himself, yet he was so confident that he could win? The people of the mysterious Sky Mansion were not vegetarians. If they wanted to play tricks, even the disciples of the 5 uniques couldn't afford the consequences. What exactly was he thinking? With doubts in his heart, Yuan Chaoyan took the opportunity to ask. Hua Yun replied, "We don't know, but that kid Wang Lu would certainly not let himself suffer a loss. After all, he is the disciple of senior sister." Yuan Chaoyan couldn't help but ask, "He's just a high-level qi cultivating stage, could he be stronger than Lu Li?" Hua Yun said, "In theory certainly not, but after all he is Wang Lu. Against him little Lu Li is simply not enough. Oh, 4th senior brother, don't mind me." Zhou Ming wryly smiled. "To be honest, I don't have enough confidence in Lu Li. If 5th junior sister also taught that trick to Wang Lu, Lu Li, that idiot, would really be in danger this time." Hua Yun said, "That can't be, right? Isn't it true that the primordial spirit has to be half real and half virtual to use? Isn't Wang Lu still far from that? Moreover, senior sister said that only she can use that trick, so other people don't even need to try it. However, if it's Wang Lu, he might be an exception. His temperament is similar to senior sister's, so it's hard to estimate." Yuan Chaoyan became more and more confused. Primordial spirit is half real and half virtual? What's the point of making a big heart demon oath? But what's the use of making a big heart demon oath? Although the big heart demon oath has the effect of equivalent trade, the stronger the binding force, the more valuable the sacrifice, and the greater the compensation. Moreover, this kind of compensation is mostly permanent, so the short-term effect is limited. To make up for the difference in strength between the two sides in 2 days, how strong would the oath be? I'm afraid it would affect the normal action. Moreover, the big heart demon oath can't be played with words. The person who made the oath must recognize his own sacrifice in order to get the compensation. For example, if someone vowed to never speak again in his life, but still spoke and then explained to himself, "I'm not going to speak, I'm just going to make some syllables." As for how these syllables are combined, it's the listener's business and it has nothing to do with me. Congratulations, the next moment this person will be haunted by the big heart demon oath, and his head will explode. The big heart demon oath couldn't deceive oneself. Fortunately, Yuan Chaoyan came from the 10,000 Arts sect, a knowledgeable sect, so he could think of this in a flash. If it were any other cultivator, they would never think of the big heart demon oath. However, even Yuan Chaoyan didn't expect that the big heart demon oath has many uses. Alas, forget it, what's the use of thinking so much? Let's wait and see in 2 days. By the way, it's time to prepare for the team fight. Even if we completely lose the single fight, there's still a chance for us to make a comeback in the team fight. 2 days passed in a flash. During this period, many things happened. For example, more and more foreign cultivators entered the Spirit Sword Mountain, ready to watch the upcoming peak fight. For example, Lingjian School, under the suggestion of an elder, began to charge a sky-high price for these spectators, which was accused of shamelessness. For example, under the manipulation of people with ulterior motives, the gambling on the final match soared, and the gambling money became astronomical. For example, the person who presided over the gambling in the mysterious Sky Mansion was naturally replaced by the regional manager of the Blue River region, a peak deity stage cultivator, to ensure that no one would play tricks in the gambling. For example, in these 2 days, Lu Li and Wang Lu didn't show up. Both of them were in closed-door training. Even their senior and junior brothers, who had a good relationship with them, couldn't see each other. For example, the enthusiastic onlookers were talking about the future of the match, each sticking to their own opinion. After witnessing the real peak fight in the semifinals, most of the people were optimistic about Lu Li's cultivation base, method, and even her flawless fighting heart on the stage. Lu Li was like a legend, making people unable to imagine the possibility of her being defeated. As for Wang Lu, the previous 2 fights were indeed wonderful, but they also exposed his true strength. Without the help of psychological attack, he was just a small high-level chi cultivating stage cultivator. Although his defense was outstanding and he also had the ability to counterattack under Lu Li's brilliant sword heart, it was not worth mentioning. Even Wang Lu's supporters believed that if he didn't use dirty tricks and fought fair and square, Wang Lu was definitely not his opponent. And in the final match, how could it be easy to come up with dirty tricks? However, in the previous 2 fights, which one of them didn't win in a situation where people were not optimistic about him? The name of the miracle Wang Lu had quietly spread. Under the watchful eyes of the public, the final match began. It was still the cloud-tread rooftop, still a boiling cauldron of voices. The most favored Lu Li had already arrived. Her gorgeous dress couldn't hide the girl's long-cultivated sharp sword intent. At this time, her condition was at its peak. On the other side, Wang Lu's resting place was empty. Seeing that the match was about to begin, Wang Lu himself didn't show up. The host of the final, Feng Yin Taoist master, humphed. "Don't dawdle." At the same time, far away on the non-phase peak, a woman in white heard her senior brother's urging voice. Thereupon she helplessly smiled. "Wang Lu, people are coming." "Okay," Wang Lu lightly replied, ignited the talisman in his hand, and instantly disappeared. A moment later, a tired sigh came from the non-phase peak. "Senior sister, you've really accepted an amazing disciple." In less than 2 days he actually succeeded. The woman in white also showed a trace of loss on her face. "I have been cultivating for more than 100 years, but this is the first time I've seen someone more shameless than me. This kid is indeed worthy to be the chosen one, his future is really boundless." With that she wryly smiled. "Junior brother, help me clean up the battlefield." On the non-phase peak where the 2 of them stood, the originally flat ground had been covered with potholes, as if it had been ravaged by a violent force. On the cloud-tread rooftop, there was only less than a cup of tea's time before the start of the match. Many people gradually became impatient when Wang Lu finally arrived. Because he didn't have the immortal flying sword ability, Wang Lu suddenly appeared using the sect's internal transmission talisman, which immediately attracted a lot of surprised eyes. Different from the previous two matches, Wang Lu wore a pitch-black robe. No one knew what kind of mystery was hidden inside. His face was leisurely with a smile on the corner of his mouth, and then he strode onto the cloud platform. On the cloud platform, Luli had been waiting for a long time. The young woman was like a sharp sword, and her astonishing sword intent assaulted everyone's face. Facing the sword intent, Wang Lu was like bathing in the spring breeze. His pace was not disorderly. He walked straight to his position and then revealed a smile. Seeing the two sides stood still, Feng Yin Taoist master made the final confirmation with a sinking voice. "Are you ready?" Luli raised her hand high. "Oh." Wang Lu nodded. "I'm ready. I can fight at any time." "Then let the match begin." As soon as his voice fell, Wang Lu's feet moved. His figure moved like the wind, and the sword of Mount Kuan appeared in his hand, pointing straight at Lu Li. Chapter 168. The sect competition between the 10,000 Arts sect and Lingjian School was eventually reduced to a one-sided performance by Lingjian School. However, this final match didn't disappoint. As soon as the match began, it immediately caused an exclamation. Wang Lu actually made his move first? In the previous two matches, Wang Lu's characteristics had been revealed. He had an amazing defense and counterattack ability, but the corresponding restriction was also very big. Not only did he lack the offensive ability, but he also needed to use his body and magical power precisely. Especially in the face of Lu Li, he needed to be even more careful. Right now, this seemingly brave and fierce attack was very easy to reveal flaws. When the time came, the opposite party's brilliant sword Heart only needed to launch a sword strike to completely disintegrate the 3-feet sword defense that he was so proud of. However, to everyone's surprise, Lu Li actually didn't move. She didn't even lift the sword in her hand, nor did she circulate the magical power within her body. She just sat there watching Wang Lu's sword of Mount Kuan directly stab into her eyes, and her eyes weren't in the slightest. Was she looking down on the opponent's attack power? However, even if Wang Lu's attack was not strong, the sword of Mount Kuan in his hand was exceptionally sharp. Previously, 3 of the 9 layers of seal had been opened, and the pure sharpness of the sword was enough to cut through the body of a foundation establishment cultivator. Thus, letting the sword of Mount Kuan stab her was simply courting death. However, the next moment Wang Lu's movement suddenly stopped. The sword of Mount Kuan steadily stopped just a hair's breadth away from the opposite party. Wang Lu snorted, retracted his sword, and then stepped forward. His left hand went straight to Lu Li's throat. The girl slightly raised her head, and the sword in her hand couldn't help but move forward. However, just as it was about to touch Wang Lu, it stopped. What a sharp intuition, worthy to be called brilliant sword Heart. Wang Lu stared straight into Lu Li's eyes. The girl's clear eyes reflected his figure, without any trace of impurity. This back and forth suddenly made many of the audience puzzled. Even some of the Yuanying stage elders were curious. How could these two juniors' moves not be understood by them? However, upon seeing this, the complexion of the several elders of Lingjian School changed. Lu Xian was the first to react. Wang Lu's fighting style, could it be, humph, worthy of being the disciple of 5th junior sister? You really took this road. Feng He seemed to remember something unhappy, and his rigid and serious face became even more gloomy. Haha, it's really this move. Senior brother Zhou Ming, your worries are indeed justified. Hua Yun was the most carefree of all, laughing non-stop. Zhou Ming shook his head with a wry smile. In his heart, he admired the master and disciple of non-phase peak from the bottom of his heart. It's only been 2 days and he actually succeeded. I remember that even 5th junior sister wasn't this fast back then. Hua Yun laughed even more happily. We've been in the same sect for more than 100 years, but I've finally seen someone more shameless than 5th senior sister. Feng He snorted disdainfully, crooked way. As soon as his voice fell, Wang Lu's sword of Mount Kuan attacked again, but this time, it was aimed at Lu Li's wrist. The girl's willowy eyebrows slightly wrinkled. Finally, she couldn't help but counterattack. The fiery sword and the sword of Mount Kuan suddenly collided, but there was no violent shock as expected by the audience. Instead, the two agile swords swung back, marking the end of this round of fighting. If one observed carefully, one could see that at this time both of their wrists were slightly trembling. Under the stage, Hua Yun could not help but exclaim, but the effect is surprisingly good. The few elders did not say anything. It was obvious that they had all recalled some sorrowful past events. For the elders of Spirit Sword Sect, Wang Wu's unique fighting method was not strange, although she restrained herself with the Great Heart Demon Oath not to take the initiative to hurt people. Although she used the Big Heart Demon Oath to restrain herself from taking the initiative to hurt people in the actual fight, if she put her sword on the tip of the other party's nose as long as it didn't hurt them, it wouldn't be counted as breaking the oath. On the contrary, when the other party counterattacked with all their strength, she would directly injure or kill them. In her own words, it was like building an arrow tower in front of someone else's house, and then concentrating on the tower defense. This was probably the #1 shameless fighting style in 9 regions. This set of fighting style could not be imitated by ordinary people. The characteristic of the Big Heart Demon Oath was equivalent exchange. The more sacrifice, the more strengthening. According to ordinary people's temperament, since they understood this set of fighting style, they didn't feel that they were at a disadvantage. However, once they had this understanding, the strengthening effect was naturally limited. However, the master and disciple of Non-Phase Peak had an unusual degree of shame. They always believed that they had sacrificed a great future. They even believed that if they switched to Brilliant Sword Heart they could reach the stage of Zhou Ming and Lu Li. This was simply shameless to the extreme. In addition, when they made their move they had to strictly control their strength. They couldn't really hurt the enemy, and they couldn't even have the intention to hurt the enemy. Once they encountered the opponent's resistance, they had to burst out with all their strength to shock the opponent to death. The strict requirement of magical power and temperament was far from what ordinary people could achieve. Exotic method, exotic fighting style, exotic master and disciple. However, the effect of this move was indeed astonishingly good. Huayun said again, at that time, senior sister had tricked them with this trick, and there were a lot of people who had fought back only to suffer a tragic counterattack. But little Lu Li is not so easy to trick. Although the little girl is usually a little stupid, her Brilliant Sword Heart is no joke. That's not right. Huayun thought of something and her eyes widened in surprise. With little Lu Li's strength, is there a need to be so cautious? If it were other people they would naturally be at a loss when encountering Wang Lu's set of tower defense tactics. However, Lu Li was different. Her stage was several levels higher than Wang Lu's, and one sword strike could decide the outcome of the battle. What is she worried about? Huayun was somewhat incredulous. Could it be that, in little Lu Li's view, Wang Lu's counterattack is something that she can't afford? That's not the case, or did senior sister strengthen her Big Heart Demon Oath in recent years? Lu Xian was also puzzled. That's impossible. That set of oath was something that several of us deliberated for a long time before it was finalized. Each syllable has an irreplaceable meaning. How could it be so easy to strengthen? According to Wang Lu's level, it's absolutely impossible for him to bounce back Lu Li's attack. Even if he could, it would be very strenuous, unless he has already reached the foundation establishment stage. The defensive power strengthened by the Big Heart Demon Oath was indeed amazing, but how could Lu Li's Brilliant Sword Heart be inferior? Even the middle-level foundation establishment Zhan Zai didn't dare to take the 12 flying swords head-on, so how could Wang Lu take it head-on and bounce it back? Unfortunately, there was a barrier between the stage and the stage, in order to prevent the disciples on the stage from being seen clearly by the elders of the other sects, thus exposing the sect's secret method. The cloud platform shielded a lot of information so that even the elders of the Lingjian school couldn't see the whole picture. They didn't know why Lu Li was actually afraid of Wang Lu to this extent. While they were puzzled, the situation on the stage changed again. Senior sister, please make your move. Wang Lu held his sword horizontally across his chest and opened his mouth to challenge her. Lu Li gazed at him for a long time. No one knew how many years had passed in her clear sword heart. After a moment she finally couldn't help but make her move. However, she was surprisingly cautious. Out of the 12 flying swords, she only used the fiery sword and the weak water sword, which lightly floated toward Wang Lu. With a clang, Wang Lu easily parried the fiery sword. The sword of Mount Kuan swung down and also parried the weak water sword. The water and fire swords that once gave the 10,000 Arts sect disciples a big headache, which they had to use all of their strength to block, were quietly resolved by Wang Lu. The audience suddenly went into an uproar. In the 10,000 Arts sect's resting area, Lu Chenkai directly jumped up. Isn't this too obvious? Don't the mysterious Sky Mansion people say anything? Remembering that he and his senior and junior brothers had just pooled together tens of thousands of spirit stones to bet on Lu Li, he couldn't help but feel nervous. Zhan Zai's complexion turned gloomy. No, it's not that. Lu Li seems to be afraid of something. She doesn't dare to go all out. Afraid of what? Her attack power is so strong, wouldn't it be fine if she could kill her opponent in a split second? Why would she be so careful? When she defeated you and me, she... Enough, be quiet. Zhan Zai gave an order, forcefully suppressing the restless Lu Qinkai. However, at this time he couldn't understand what was it about Wang Lu that made Lu Li dread him. That set of counterattack nameless sword was indeed powerful, but if it wanted to rebound Lu Li's sword, that was just a pipe dream. What exactly was Lu Li worried about? In fact, Lu Li didn't worry about anything at all. When she entered the fighting state, she completely lost most of her feelings. Her every move was guided by her sword heart. And now, that clear sword heart told her that it was not the time to go all out. As for the reason, Lu Li didn't know and didn't care. As long as she did everything according to her intuition, everything would go smoothly. However, as soon as Lu Li slowed down her rhythm, Wang Lu found it difficult to bear. Although the girl's sword momentum was gentle and continuous, it was, after all, the brilliant sword heart. Every time he easily parried it, Wang Lu felt his inner mansion was in turmoil and his primordial spirit was shaken. The gap in stage was, after all, a gap. Sure enough, after 3 to 5 moves, Lu Li's flowing wind sword suddenly accelerated. When Wang Lu couldn't pull back his sword in time, she unexpectedly thrust it out. Wang Lu tried his best to parry it, but his body swayed and his magical power surged, which impressively revealed a flaw. The next moment, the 7 flying swords behind Lu Li combined into one. However, the girl actually hesitated when she raised her arm to give the order to focus fire. The brilliant sword heart suddenly issued a faint warning, indicating that there was a great danger ahead. Lu Li, who always believed in her intuition, put down her hand without hesitation, ready to separate her flying swords and continue the protracted fight with her continuous sword momentum. However, at this time Wang Lu's sword of Mount Kuan, which had been pushed away, slanted to stab her. Although Lu Li didn't know about the big heart demon oath, her intuition told her that this sword was not a threat, so she was ready to ignore it. A moment later Lu Li's vision blurred, and the sword heart in her jade mansion suddenly bloomed. The girl involuntarily lifted her arm, and the 7 flying swords that were still separated suddenly converged and pierced straight out. Ha, come at me. Wang Lu's scattered sword momentum suddenly stabilized and solidified, and his whole body released an astonishing aura. The several elders under the stage suddenly stood up. Their eyes were filled with amazement. Entering Foundation Establishment? They had no time to marvel at the sudden appearance of Wang Lu's Foundation Establishment stage cultivation base. They saw that Lu Li didn't care about the sudden change. Her flying sword momentum was not right. Unexpectedly, she wanted to meet force with non-phase sword art. The girl's clear and agile eyes were completely gone, leaving behind only a vacant look. The next moment, Wang Lu raised his sword of Mount Kuan and directly collided with the brilliant sword heart. The long-awaited shock finally arrived. On the cloud platform, the clouds tumbled, showing the huge energy contained in the collision of the 2 swords. A moment later, the result was clear. Wang Lu coughed several times, blood came out from the corner of his mouth. 3 of Lu Li's 12 flying swords were broken. Wang Lu wiped his mouth and under the countless people's dumbfounded gaze, said with a smile, 3 more times, come again. Chapter 169. The decisive battle on the Cloud Tread rooftop had been going on for some time. Based on normal standards, this battle had already gone on for quite some time. This was because this was an arena battle between elite disciples, and there were elders watching over them. As long as the participants could win, they normally wouldn't hold back. During the battle, they would reveal their trump cards, and as the hare rose and the falcon descended, victory and defeat would be decided extremely quickly. In fact, in the previous 2 rounds of the fight, the winner and loser were all decided within 3 to 5 moves. The pace of the fight was compact and exciting. Often, there would be several waves of changes in a single breath, which overwhelmed the audience. Before the final match, many people regarded the semi-final match between Zhan Zai and Lu Li as the pinnacle match between the 2 sects. In that match, 10,000 methods comprehension and brilliant sword heart confronted each other, and in just a few rounds the audience was suffocated. However, in today's decisive battle, the situation on the stage made the audience tangled. In recent years, this old man has watched a lot of fights between the younger generation, but this is the first time that I don't understand it. A sage-like, white-haired, ruddy old man gently stroked his beard, and his 2 slender white eyebrows were tangled together. This elder from Myriad Appearance sect had a profound cultivation base and a powerful primordial spirit. Since the beginning of the fight, he had been closely watching all the changes on the Cloud Tread rooftop. However, the feedback information made him unable to fathom it. Why did Wang Lu confidently take the initiative to attack? What exactly was Lu Li afraid of? Were it not for the ice-cold face of the mysterious Sky Mansion's manager who remained silent, he really would have suspected that this fight was fake. While he was puzzled, the first wave of confrontation between Wang Lu and Lu Li broke out. The amount of information that he received in an instant shocked this elder of myriad appearance sect. Many of the changes were still puzzling, but there was one thing that was beyond doubt. Wang Lu had actually reached the foundation establishment stage? For a deity stage cultivator, even 100 foundation establishment cultivators couldn't withstand the wrath of his primordial spirit. However, as the reward-giver elder of myriad appearance sect, he was well aware of how difficult it was to reach the foundation establishment stage. From chi cultivating stage to foundation establishment stage was a big hurdle, enough to make most of the cultivators in 9 regions frustrated. Even those outstanding disciples had to spend several months in seclusion from chi refinement to foundation establishment. They had to accumulate enough energy, and with the help of foundation establishment pills and other medicines, they could successfully break through. When the lead disciple of the Myriad Appearance School reached the foundation establishment stage, he didn't use elixirs, nor did he go into seclusion. After meditating in the training room for a day and a night, he successfully built his Jade Mansion and successfully reached the foundation establishment stage. He was regarded as a rare genius in 100 years by the school, and was trained with all their might. According to the rumor, Xianghua of Xingjing sect only needed to meditate for a moment before she successfully cultivated her Jade Mansion, which was an incredible legend for many people in the Wanxian League. And now, a scene that was even more miraculous than the legend was happening right before his eyes. Someone had actually reached foundation establishment just before the battle. Furthermore, it was literally the foundation establishment before the battle. It was rumored that Lu Li reached the foundation establishment stage in the Blood Cloud Gorge. However, that battle lasted for several days and nights, so who knew how long it took for her to reach the foundation establishment stage. Wang Lu, on the other hand, did not stop at all. Naturally, he stepped onto the threshold of the foundation establishment stage. Like Elder Wan Xiang, all the people from the other sects were also shocked. The 5 disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect had their mouths wide open. They felt that even their primordial spirit was somewhat unable to operate. Their eldest brother Zhan Zai tightly bit his lips. His heart was filled with both alarm and anger. As the lead disciple of one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League, he only took a cup of tea worth of time to reach the foundation establishment stage. According to the rumor, he and Xianghua were on the same level, both of them were at the top of the Wanxian League. However, compared to this Wang Lu who reached the foundation establishment stage while talking and laughing, what was that? Only the elders of the Lingjian school were not surprised at all. Because Wang Lu was, after all, a cultivator with void spirit root. Although the property of this spirit root was a bit of a pain in the ass in the current 9 regions, at least in breaking through the bottleneck, void spirit root had an incomparable advantage over other spirit roots. There was truly no resistance, a smooth transition. Today he reached the foundation establishment stage and tomorrow he would go to work. No, he would go to work while he was at the foundation establishment stage. Of course, the sudden transition from high-level chi cultivating stage to the edge of foundation establishment stage was not a big nor small miracle. However, with the help of elixirs and the Big Heart Demon Oath, it was not difficult to understand. What really surprised them was Lu Li's blank look at the last moment. She collided head-on with Wang Lu, whose magical power and primordial spirit were at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. She only slightly injured the opponent, but she lost 3 of her flying swords. Although the explosive power of the brilliant sword heart remained the same, the agile and ever-changing feeling was completely gone. This was not a choice that a normal Lu Li would make. While people were still in doubt, the second round of collision between Wang Lu and Lu Li came. After this round of confrontation, the blank look in Lu Li's eyes disappeared, and her clear and agile temperament was once again glowing. The girl adjusted the position of the 9 flying swords and pointed her finger forward. The flying swords suddenly dispersed, forming an encirclement, and then continued to attack one after another in an exceptionally tricky manner. Wang Lu sneered. His sword of Mount Kuan, which was previously calm, became as agile as the wind. The hazy figure of an elegant woman could be vaguely seen on the surface of the sword. It was the sword spirit Autumn Beam who had fully stimulated her power. Under the 3 feet sword defense, the sword of Mount Kuan was like a phantom. 1 against 9, yet it didn't yield. The brilliant sword heart that once gave the 10,000 Arts sect cultivators a big headache couldn't break through Wang Lu's sword defense at all. However, after a series of clanking sounds, Wang Lu's expression gradually turned dignified. Strengthened by the big heart demon oath, coupled with the overflow of magical power during the foundation establishment stage, Wang Lu indeed has a perfect defense at this time. However, if Lu Li doesn't engage in close combat with him, Wang Lu's counterattack would be ineffective. In the long run, Lu Li would still have a higher chance of winning. Just as Hua Yun was trying to voice out her own judgment, she saw Wang Lu sneer. He swung his sword to deflect the 3 flying swords, and then he suddenly took a step forward. Lu Li indifferently floated backward. Her colorful dress drew an agile rainbow. In terms of agility, even 10 Wang Lu's couldn't compare to Lu Li's brilliant sword heart. However, the next moment the girl's figure stagnated, and her eyes once again showed a vacant look. The 9 flying swords converged into one and unexpectedly launched that violent and overbearing attack again. Boom. After the second round of collision, Lu Li once again broke 3 flying swords, while Wang Lu vomited out a mouthful of blood. His injury wasn't light, but it didn't affect the overall situation. Seeing the remaining 6 flying swords in midair, most of the people realized that Lu Li had suffered a big loss, but why exactly was that? While they were puzzled, the girl showed a vacant look for the 3rd time. The remaining 6 flying swords converged and bombarded with full force. Boom. There were only 3 flying swords left. Wang Lu's injury worsened, but his morale had climbed to the peak. As long as this was the last blow, Lu Li's flying swords would be destroyed, and she wouldn't be able to use any of her tricks. And at this time, a certain brilliant peak master suddenly stood up. What a cunning kid. With that, Zhou Ming pointed his finger. Look at his clothes. Under Zhou Ming's guidance, Lu Xian, Fang He, and the other elders immediately saw the reason. It turned out that when Wang Lu fought against Lu Li, he occasionally shook his sleeves, and the thick ink-like darkness on the sleeves of his black robe would slightly melt, revealing densely packed characters. It was precisely when Lu Li saw those characters that her face turned blank and her lightness was no longer there. And those characters were mostly, "Idiot, you only know how to eat. Eat, 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 eat until you die. Give me 3 more hours of practice. If you don't finish, you're not allowed to eat." And so on and so forth. Words that made people scratch their heads in confusion. However, upon seeing this, the elders of the Lingjian school burst into laughter a moment later. Sure enough, he's a cunning kid. Lu Li's sword heart was clear and pure. Once she entered the fighting state, she would ignore the outside world and would not be disturbed. However, Wang Lu was exceptionally cunning in imitating her master Zhou Ming's tone and handwriting, writing a jamming suit. Lu Li could ignore everything else, but she couldn't ignore her master. On the contrary, Lu Li's clear and pure physique would actually amplify this part of the noise. Just now in her mind, there seemed to be countless masters roaring and rebuking her, which almost made her soul fly away and scatter. If not for the more powerful suppression of fighting intent, Lu Li's primordial spirit would have already collapsed. Although this move of Wang Lu was cunning, it really hit the vital point. Hua Yun shook her head and said, "To be able to think of this move and do this step, Wang Lu has thoroughly studied little Lu Li. Senior brother, this loss is not undeserved. It's all because that girl Lu Li's brilliant sword heart is not enough, otherwise, these words are meaningless. Wang Lu's non-phase method hasn't been cultivated to a high level, moreover, his magical power is still a few levels lower." Humph. Zhou Ming resentfully sat down. His face was still gloomy, but he wasn't worried at all. Wang Lu, that kid, underestimated the brilliant sword heart too much. Does he really think that by breaking Lu Li's flying sword, he can win? Hua Yun asked. Oh, what do you mean? Humph, flying sword incarnation, that's the method that Lu Li just started to cultivate, so she's far from being proficient in it. Her real skill is still in close combat. When her flying sword is broken and she has to fight in close combat, Wang Lu has no chance of winning, even if he has the big heart demon oath. This was not difficult to understand. If Wang Lu was in his peak state, perhaps his non-phase sword, strengthened by the big heart demon oath, coupled with the overflow of magical power from his foundation establishment stage, would be able to confront Lu Li's brilliant sword heart head-on. However, at this time he had suffered a serious injury, so it was impossible for his non-phase sword to maintain its peak power. Therefore, Lu Li's initial choice to use her flying sword to fight was correct. Although she was tricked by Wang Lu, her odds of winning were still higher. In the end, no one could deny that Lu Li was stronger in terms of raw power. Hua Yun said, "However, this is, after all, a very wonderful fight. Wang Lu has done better than anyone could have expected." Several senior brothers coldly humphed in unison, but no one could refute it. No one could do what Wang Lu did. Although this kid was as despicable and shameless as his master, but he was indeed formidable and they couldn't help but admire him. Unfortunately, he seems to be so confident that he has placed a big bet on himself. I don't know what he's going to do next. While they were talking, the situation on the field really changed. There were only 3 flying swords left in Lu Li's hand. Even if she looked dazed and her agile heart was no longer there, she instinctively clenched her sword and gave up the idea of using her flying sword to hurt the enemy. Then the girl's figure was like the wind. The 2 swords in her hands simultaneously ignited with flames, and her swift movement was like 2 dazzling meteors. The 20th layer of fiery sword, double sword combined chop. Wang Lu's eyes suddenly changed. His left hand gently stroked the sword of Mount Kuan, and then he pulled out his last card. The 4th layer of the seal on the sword of Mount Kuan was broken. In a flash, the sword spirit autumn beam condensed her sword outside her body and stood next to Wang Lu. Her slender hand and Wang Lu held the sword hilt. Then the 2 of them lifted the sword of Mount Kuan and went straight toward Lu Li. Boom. After a deafening explosion sound, a ring of flame, fueled by the clouds, crazily rolled and spread out. The innermost layer of the cloud platform was instantly incinerated. The cloud platform, which was bound by the array, was like a flame purgatory. The power of this sword strike was enough to burn a city. In that purgatory, Lu Li continued to cough. Blood continued to flow from her mouth. She had suffered a serious internal injury. However, her 2 hands still tightly held the sword, and her imposing manner of a sword cultivator hadn't diminished in the slightest. On the other side, in the middle of the flame, a dazzling golden light shone. That was the magical light released by the elder to save his or her life when one side was defeated. When the golden light appeared, the outcome was decided. This fight, Lu Li won. Amidst the thunderous cheers from the audience, there were several areas that were completely silent. The disciples of Lingjian School and 10,000 Arts sect gawked at the result on the stage. They all felt that it was somewhat unbelievable. That Wang Lu actually lost? Well, although from any rational point of view, this was a reasonable result, so much so that several disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect even went all out to bet on Lu Li's victory. However, when the result came out, it was still hard to believe. Could the miracle Wang Lu not create another miracle? Speaking of which, I remember that Wang Lu, that kid, bet more than 90 million spirit stones on himself before the fight? TSK, you should cherish your life and stay away from gambling. At this moment, on the rooftop, wrapped in golden light, Wang Lu had a distressed look on his face. Damn it, I still lost. Opposite him, Lu Li grinned and put away her sword. The girl's fighting intent was completely restrained, and the sharp sword intent was replaced by an innocent smile. You fought very well. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Uncle said that people of non-phase peak are good at playing tricks, but their own cultivation base is not that good. Wang Lu wryly smiled. Your comfort is really grating. While saying that, he shook his head. Forget it, let me congratulate you on your victory first. With that, he extended his hand toward Lu Li to show his friendship. Although Lu Li was naive, she was not without etiquette. She walked over with a smile and held Wang Lu's hand. The next moment, a pink mist sprayed out from Wang Lu's palm. Lu Li swayed and then softly fell to the ground. Wang Lu reached out to hug the girl, slowly put her on the ground, and then gently pressed a mechanism on his shoulder. The golden light around his body was extinguished. On and off the stage there was a deathly silence. Wang Lu stood on the stage for a while and coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood. His injury was very heavy and could fall at any time, but since no one spoke, he had to open his mouth. Although I'm sorry, I have to say that I've won. Chapter 170. In the 9 regions calendar year 6348, the duel on the cloud platform of Spirit Sword Mountain was destined to be recorded in the annals of history. Although the cultivation base of the 2 combatants was not high, only low-level foundation establishment, one of them even entered the foundation establishment stage before the duel. However, this duel revealed a truth to the countless onlookers at the scene, and even the cultivators who later learned the whole story of this duel. Just how low could a cultivator's moral integrity go? When the referee of the duel, Feng Yin Taoist Master, announced Wang Lu's victory and explained that the previous golden light was released by Wang Lu himself, the audience almost rioted. They had seen shameless people, but they had never seen such a shameless one. A peak duel of strength and wisdom, a duel that was supposed to promote the spirit of immortal cultivation and provide positive energy, was completely tarnished by Wang Lu's crafty plot at the last moment. The audience felt as if they ate a fruit and got half a worm, which couldn't be more disgusting. However, there was no doubt about the outcome of this duel. Although Wang Lu didn't have any moral integrity, he didn't violate the rules. The rules didn't say that the contestants couldn't release their own golden light to falsify the result. And Lu Li, upon seeing the golden light, relaxed her vigilance, which was her own stupidity, so she couldn't blame others. In fact, after the 20 layers of fiery sword, Lu Li's magical power was almost exhausted, unable to maintain the operation of her sword heart. Of course, compared to the seriously injured and dying Wang Lu, she still had the upper hand in terms of combat effectiveness. Unfortunately, at the last moment, the deciding factor was not the combat effectiveness. The result of the duel was recognized by the peak deity stage disciple of Mysterious Sky Mansion. He wryly smiled and said that this time, the Mysterious Sky Mansion was going to lose miserably. Of course, this was a lie because, except for a few people, most of the people who bet on Lu Li were still betting on her. No one thought that Wang Lu could really win, but in the end he still won. For such a result, the celebration banquet that Lingjian School had originally prepared had to be cancelled. Originally, they planned to make friends with the cultivators from various sects who came to watch the duel, but now there was nothing left to do. After the duel was over, they went back to their respective sects with a disgusted feeling. And many righteous people, before they were about to leave, showed clear hostility towards Wang Lu. "Brat, if you leave the mountain in the future, don't ever let me see you, or else I'll definitely teach you a lesson." "That's right, I've seen shameless people, but I've never seen someone as shameless as you." "Humph, if I wasn't a guest, I would definitely give you a good beating to vent my anger." In this regard, the elders of Lingjian School could only smile bitterly. Although the disciples of the same school were on the same side, they couldn't speak up for the direct disciple. To be honest, most of them had complicated feelings. As for Wang Lu himself, while receiving treatment from the sect's elders, he made a decisive statement in the face of the crowd's agitation. All right, come and hit me." The warriors of justice were all stunned. You're giving up on treatment? Are you provoking us?" Wang Lu nodded. "That's right. Hit me if you can." "Fine, you're seeking your own death." Therefore, all kinds of flying swords, seals, talismans, flags and other things covered the sky. The seventh elder who was in charge of treatment was shocked. Seeing that he was about to be swallowed by the sea of flying swords, Wang Lu stretched out his right hand. "Wait. What, you want to beg for mercy again?" I'm afraid it's too late to beg for mercy now." Wang Lu said, "If you want to hit me you can, but you have to pay first." "What?" Wang Lu said confidently, "There's no reason for me to waste my time and energy to satisfy your sense of justice, right? If you want to hit me you can, but you have to pay 10,000 spiritual stones first, and then I'll fight with you in the arena." 10,000 spiritual stones? Wang Lu sneered. "This is the base price. My energy is limited in one day and I can't play with you indefinitely. I'll only fight 10 battles a day, and the battles will start according to the order of your bids. I'll give you 10 minutes to bid. The number of slots is limited, so if you want to fight, hurry up." F***ck, don't you have any shame? Wang Lu slapped the table. "If you're poor and have no money, just say it." F***ck, your father bid 100,000 spiritual stones, see how I beat the **t out of you. Wang Lu slapped the table again. "You Taoist Master King Pill, have the nerve to challenge me, a foundation establishment cultivator? Who's the shameless one here? I'll say in advance, the cultivation base is limited to Shudan and below, not Shudan. If you have a high cultivation base, you can pay double the price and suppress your cultivation base and primordial spirit. If you want to accept the bid, you can choose not to accept it. I'll accept the reservation here. After paying the deposit, when my cultivation base is the same as yours, I can accept the challenge at any time." F***ck, you're quite good at scheming? Wang Lu sneered. "Didn't you inquire about my name before coming here? How could a lowly person like you hope to compete with the brilliance of the top student of Spirit Sword Sect? Okay, it's almost time. Is the bidding over? I'll go first. I bid 500,000 spiritual stones. Although I'm in Shudan stage, I'll suppress my cultivation base to low-level foundation establishment. I won't take advantage of you, I just want to tell you that there's still justice in the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions." A sword cultivator from the first-rank sect, Heavenly Sword Sect, loudly shouted with a righteous look, which won a burst of applause. "Well said, fellow Taoist Luo-san. Us righteous cultivators should have this kind of courage, Luo-san, I support you." "That's right, fellow Taoist Luo-san. Today I'm short of money, so I can't compare to you, these rich cultivators. However, what you just said is right in my heart. Of your 500,000 spiritual stones, I'll support you 5,000. It's just a little bit of my strength, but I also want to promote righteousness. To raise the prestige of my righteous path. Luo San solemnly cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, fellow Taoists, for your support. I bid a sky-high price to fight him, not to become famous, but to promote righteousness. Since ancient times, my heavenly sword sect has upheld the righteous path. Since the great war of immortals and demons, we've been one of the mainstays of the Righteous Path Alliance. Our sect leader, Sword 16, has reached the unity stage, and his divine sword is rarely matched. In addition, our sect takes good care of our disciples and trains them seriously. F***CK advertising costs a fee. If you keep talking, you'll have to pay more." Wang Lu slammed the registration desk below the cloud platform, urging Luo San to go up and fight as soon as possible. Luo San looked regretful, but he didn't say anything. He went up the platform with his sword in hand, stepped on a sword light and floated in the air. He pointed his sword at Wang Lu from above. "Come up, let me teach you the principles of being a man and cultivating immortality." Wang Lu sneered and walked up the cloud platform. A moment later. "Fellow Taoist Luo San? Fellow Taoist Luo San, what's wrong with you? Wake up." "Wang Lu, what kind of trick did you use to injure fellow Taoist Luo San?" Wang Lu gently wiped the sword of Mount Kuan on the platform, and with a disdainful smile, he said to himself, "I've killed him." Next. "Damn I Xiang Tianga of Empty Bamboo Mountain, bid 450,000 spirit stones to avenge fellow Taoist Luo San. I'm also a Shudan stage cultivator, and I've suppressed my cultivation to low-level foundation establishment. I don't want to take advantage of you. I want to see what kind of trick you have." Another moment passed. "Brother Xiang? Brother Xiang, what's wrong with you? Wake up." "Wang Lu, what kind of trick did you use to injure Brother Xiang?" Wang Lu gently wiped the sword of Mount Kuan on the platform, and with a disdainful smile, he said to himself, "Double kill next. Next your mother. I'm Guyu of Ghostine Mountain, King Pill Realm. Do you dare to fight me?" Wang Lu snorted. "Do you dare to pay first?" "Damn, isn't it just double? 400,000 spirit stones are here. Wait for me on the platform. According to your request, I'll suppress my cultivation to high-level foundation establishment. Let's see how you stop me." A moment passed. "Brother Guyu? Brother Guyu, what's wrong with you? Wake up." "Wang Lu, what kind of trick did you use to injure Brother Guyu?" Wang Lu gently wiped the sword of Mount Kuan on the platform. With a disdainful smile on his face, he said to himself, "Big kill next." After 10 rounds, Wang Lu withdrew the sword of Mount Kuan and slowly walked off the platform. The surrounding area was deathly silent. Hundreds of people involuntarily made way for him. Wang Lu smiled. "My Lingjian school is hospitable. You can stay on the mountain for a few days. My rules remain the same. 10 rounds a day. The highest bidder will fight. I wish you all good luck." Watching Wang Lu leave, the hundreds of people didn't open their mouth for a long time. Just now he had fought 10 battles in a row, and by the end of it the people below the stage were actually scared witless. Previously, when they watched the fight between Wang Lu and Lu Li, they only saw that Wang Lu was suppressed by Lu Li to the point that he had to resort to tricks to fight. Thus, they inwardly thought, how much real ability does this kid have? They had been cultivating for many years, experienced and knowledgeable. Coupled with their superior intelligence, they could certainly break his tricks. However, when they went on the platform and fought against him, they found that the average person didn't even have the qualification to see his tricks. His real ability was enough to make them speechless. A total of 10 people, among which there were geniuses who were regarded as the future hope of some righteous sects, as well as seniors who suppressed their cultivation base in an attempt to win with their rich experience and insight. Without exception, all of them fell under the sword of Wang Lu. Although among these 10 people, there were no geniuses from high-rank sects, there were also no weak ones. However, Wang Lu's restriction was only below Shudan stage, which meant that the opponent might have a complete stage advantage over him. But this was still not enough, far from enough. Even Taoist Master King Pill in Foundation Establishment stage could not penetrate Wang Lu's sword defense, nor could he resist his counterattack. As for cultivators above Yuanying stage, perhaps they could defeat Wang Lu with their Foundation Establishment stage cultivation base, but they also wanted face. Yuanying bullying Foundation Establishment stage, how could they have the nerve to do that? After 10 consecutive defeats, few people remembered Wang Lu's shamelessness. Instead, many people remembered the words of the oldest person in Kunlun sect, the immortal Wang, who was known to be able to see through the past and the present. From now on, the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions is the world of the young. When the immortal Wing said this, it just so happened that Qianghua of Shengjing sect had reached the foundation establishment stage through meditation, which caused a sensation in the 9 regions. People only thought that it was the goodwill of Kunlun sect to Shengjing sect, but now it seemed like there was a hidden meaning in these words. Qianghua Fairy Zhanzai Lu Li Wang Lu. Most of these peerless geniuses of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League suddenly rose in the last 10 years, and then went far beyond the rest of the immortal cultivation world. Now they have yet to grow up, but they have already shown their sharpness. In the future, once their cultivation base is successful, perhaps no one could stop them. The new generation excels the old. For a time, many immortal cultivation world seniors thought of this old saying. Chapter 171. After the peak showdown between Lu Li and Wang Lu, and after experiencing Wang Lu's 10 consecutive victories on the Grand Cloud platform, the spectators from all over the world left the mountain one after another. In fact, even if they wanted to stay, there was no way. Lingjian School was not a park where people could stroll around whenever they wanted. With the departure of a large number of spectators, the exchange between the 10,000 Arts sect and Lingjian School also quietly came to an end. Although according to the rules, there was still a 5-on-5 team battle between the 2 sects to compete, the interest of the cultivators of the 2 sects inevitably faded. As for this team battle, people mostly treated it as the aftertaste of the climax. Even the participating disciples didn't pay too much attention to this matter. The 10,000 Arts sect, on the other hand, slightly rubbed their fists, wanting to wash away their previous shame. However, their preparation for the match was not too active. The team fight between the 2 sects began on time 2 days later. This match actually had the ideal harmonious atmosphere of friendship first and competition second. The disciples of the 2 sects went all out, yet there wasn't much murderous aura. In this match, the 10,000 Arts sect really played their due imposing manner. The 5 disciples cooperated with each other tacitly, and their spells emerged one after another, which dazzled the spectators and made them gasp in amazement. The Lingjian School's cooperation appeared to be a bit inferior. Not long after the fight began, when Bao and Yu Yun were regretfully and unwillingly blasted out of the arena by Zhan Zai's Annihilation Thunder. During this period, although Wang Lu had the intention to rescue them, even if he had the Big Heart Demon Oath to strengthen his non-phase method, it was still beyond his ability to protect the 4 of them in front of Zhan Zai, Yi Feifei, and the others. In the middle of the fight, even Yu Xinyao had no choice but to withdraw. The Lingjian School only had Lu Li and Wang Lu, while the 10,000 Arts sect had 5 people. None of them were defeated. At this point, people thought that the 10,000 Arts sect would smoothly win and save some face. However, the result was unexpected. Because no matter what, the 10,000 Arts sect couldn't deal with the remaining 2. Not to mention Wang Lu, even Lu Li's brilliant sword heart couldn't do anything to his 3-feet sword defense. Zhan Zai and Yi Feifei had tried to bombard it with their strongest method, but it didn't budge at all. Although Lu Li wasn't good at defense, the 12 flying swords were not that easy to deal with. Not to mention, although Wang Lu couldn't protect all 4 of them, he could easily protect Lu Li with his non-phase sword Qi. After being entangled for a while, the advantage of Wang Lu and Lu Li in a protracted fight was manifested. On the 10,000 Arts sect side, the most important defender, Lu Chenkai, had exhausted his talismans and could no longer protect his teammates from the brilliant sword heart. Therefore, several of his senior and junior brothers were killed one by Lu Li. Finally, Zhan Zai tried to repeat the same old trick by using the Annihilation Thunder to perish together with his opponent. As a result, Wang Lu enthusiastically rushed forward and tightly hugged him. The raging thunder power was completely stifled, which nearly caused Zhan Zai's Jade Mansion to collapse and his primordial spirit to collapse. The 10,000 Arts sect had nothing to say after losing both the single fight and the team fight. Thus, the several senior and junior brothers decided to endure the humiliation and return to the mountain for closed-door training. They would endure the hardships and wait for the next day to take revenge. Before leaving, the Lingjian School organized the disciples to go to the 4 divisions' peak to see them off. The 2 sides exchanged farewell words, which was a sincere and touching scene. 3 years later, no, 1 year later, I will visit you again. Zhan Zai's complexion was solemn, with an unyielding fighting spirit, trying to conceal the tension and palpitation in his heart. Lu Li, when the time comes, I will not lose to you again. The girl tilted her head with a puzzled look. But 1 year later, you will definitely lose to me again. Zhan Zai didn't expect that his innocent confession would get such a reply. He stiffened his neck and said, "That's not necessarily true." Standing on the side, Wang Lu, who also saw off the guests, could not help but sigh, deeply lamenting the IQ of these good-for-nothing nerds of the 10,000 Arts sect. Senior sister Lu Li, that grandson said that the next time he comes, he wants to invite you to barbecue. The girl's eyes suddenly became clear and bright, and her smile was as bright as a flower. Okay, you're welcome to come again at any time." With that, she stretched out her pair of slender jade-like hands, tightly grasped Zhan Zai's hand, and then swung it up and down. "That's a deal. Next time you come, you must invite me to eat barbecue." Zhan Zai instantly felt that his sincere heart was being twisted and stirred by two completely opposite feelings. One was called the happiness brought by the touch of a gentle and exquisite little hand, and the other was called the pain that seemed hopeless in this lifetime. In next to no time, his pure and childlike heart shattered into bits and pieces, as if it had suffered a severe blow that wasn't inferior to the enlightened sword heart. In addition, Hai Yunfan was also filled with emotion. "Brother Wang, you've taught me another lesson. Little Hai, when did I sleep with you? Don't talk nonsense." Hai Yunfan tried hard to make himself laugh. "Seriously, since I left the Spirit Sword Mountain 5 years ago, I've been thinking if I didn't go to the 10,000 Arts sect, but instead became Brother Wang's martial brother, what would it be like?" Wang Lu frowned and took half a step back. "Little Hai, to tell you the truth, your current appearance makes me a bit uncomfortable." Hai Yunfan decided to ignore Wang Lu and continued to say, "Because of this I've been tangled for a long time, but now I'm relieved. Compared to being your martial brother, it's more interesting to be your opponent. Of course, I don't want to be your enemy." Opponent and enemy, these were indeed two completely different concepts. "Next time we meet, I will try my best not to lose to you." After saying that, Hai Yunfan shook his head. Of course, for a loser to say such a line would only make people laugh. However, the declaration must be said. "Brother Wang, I look forward to our next meeting." Wang Lu looked at little Hai. "Okay. Oh, I almost forgot, this time I have a gift for you." Hai Yunfan handed a piece of sincerity paper to Wang Lu. "It may be useful to you." Wang Lu took it and found that it was the royal seal of the Grand Cloud Empire. He couldn't help but smile. Little Hai was indeed little Hai. When it was time to be considerate, he was especially considerate. With the royal seal of the Grand Cloud Empire, the Wisdom Sect's cross-state business would go to another level. Nowadays, Wang Lu didn't need other resources, especially spirit stones, but this royal seal, which couldn't be easily bought with money. After sending away the people of the 10,000 Arts sect, the Lingjian school once again became deserted. In this short period of half a month, a lot of things had happened. When the cloud wave boat gradually went away under the golden sunshine, many people felt heartfelt exhaustion. However, exhaustion was exhaustion, the finishing work still needed to be done. For example, the gambling settlement of a certain crazy gambler. In the duel between Wang Lu and Lu Li, he bet nearly 100 million spirit stones, which was the biggest gamble in the Blue River region in the past decades. In the end, he won more than 100 million spirit stones, which could be called incomparably rich. Such a huge amount of money was something that even the mysterious Sky Mansion couldn't come up with in a short time. Finally, the person in charge of the Blue River region personally delivered more than 100 first-rate mysterious sky crystals, which shocked countless people. According to the prior agreement, Wang Lu gave 50 of them to his master. The woman was so happy that on the spot, she announced that she would immediately marry him, which made the person in charge of the mysterious Sky Mansion extremely embarrassed. Fortunately, the woman's ambition was beaten back by the sect leader and the disciplinary elder, and only then did she let it go. The poor suddenly became rich. The fifth elder had completely lost the calmness that a Taoist master of immortal cultivation should have. She put away the 50 mysterious sky crystals and happily rode her flying sword down the mountain, saying that she wanted to carefully enjoy life. More than 10 days later, the woman in white returned to the mountain. Surprisingly, she once again lived a poor and happy life. Wang Lu was very curious about this. In just 10 days she was able to see through the world of mortals. How could this woman's self-cultivation be so good? However, when he asked, the answer he got was like a thunderclap. "I've spent all my money, so I had to come back." Spent all my money? Wang Lu couldn't help but prostrate himself in admiration. In just 10 days she had spent tens of millions of spirit stones? However, before he could exclaim in surprise, he heard his master's gentle and creepy question, "Little Lu heir, when will our marriage be held?" Wang Lu loudly cursed, "When you pick up your moral integrity." Actually, at this time Wang Lu was also out of money. During the days when his master went down the mountain, he had continuously transferred all of his winnings to the wisdom sect to accelerate its development. This rapidly growing sect was currently in a state of capital hunger, so no matter how much money it was, it could be digested. Wang Lu firmly believed that when the wisdom sect blossomed and bore fruit, his investment at this time would be several times more than before. In any case, the story of the master and disciple of the non-phase peak squandering hundreds of millions of spirit stones in just 10 days had become the glorious legend of the Spirit Sword Mountain. After that, there was the issue of the sect's lead disciple. In order to encourage the disciples to work hard, the Lingjian School's Heavenly Sword Hall, under the suggestion of Wang Lu, established the lead disciple system. And the champion of the single fight in the sect's competition would have the authority of the lead disciple for 10 years. Although there was a great controversy in the final fight, Wang Lu's victory was beyond doubt. Therefore, in the midst of the discussion, the sect leader Feng Yin Taoist Master, on behalf of all the Heavenly Sword Hall elders, conferred the title of lead disciple to Wang Lu. The conferment ceremony was held quietly outside the sect leader's bamboo room on the stellar peak. There were only a few people present. Originally, the Lingjian school intended to gather all the disciples at the 4 divisions peak to announce the candidate of the lead disciple, in order to stimulate the morale. However, who told Wang Lu, this lead disciple, to come out of nowhere, so the grand ceremony had to be hastily cancelled. For Wang Lu, the special authority of the lead disciple was far more meaningful than the grand ceremony, and he never cared what other people thought of him. After receiving the gold medal that symbolized the honor of the lead disciple from Feng Yin Taoist Master's hand, Wang Lu was ready to go down the mountain. However, he heard Feng Yin say with a smile, "Hee, don't you want to accompany this new master to chat?" The sect's lead disciple was only restricted by the sect leader, so in theory he was equal to the sect leader's disciple. Since Feng Yin Taoist Master said so, Wang Lu had to stop and smiled back. "If you have something to say, please say it." Outside the bamboo room, the old man and Wang Lu sat side by side. The old man was silent for a long time and then slowly said, "It has been more than 5 years since you entered the Lingjian school. However, the scene of you overcoming all the difficulties in the immortal path is still fresh in my memory. At that time, by a freak combination of factors, I almost made a big mistake by rejecting you outside the door. Even now, I still feel scared when I think about it." Wang Lu smiled. "Is it that serious? Lingjian school is full of talented people. Senior sister Lu Li and that senior sister Zhu Shiyao, whom I haven't seen for 5 years, are not below me. If any of the other sects could have one of them, they would be able to settle the world. In fact, it's not a big deal for Lingjian school to lack me." After a pause, Wang Lu seriously said, "On the contrary, if I didn't cultivate the non-phase method here, I would definitely not have today's achievements. I'm very clear about this." Feng Yin Taoist Master's eyes revealed an incomparable gratification. "It's not easy for you to think so. However, you don't have to belittle yourself. Although little Lu Li and Yao Er are the first-class geniuses in 9 regions, the future of Lingjian school still depends on you." Wang Lu was silent for a moment and then said, "Sect leader, could it be that Lingjian school recently failed in its investment and needs urgent capital injection?" Feng Yin jokingly scolded, "You, this kid, no matter how down and out Lingjian school is, it's not as greedy for your private money. What's more, do you really think a mere few hundred mysterious sky crystals can support the operation of one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League?" Wang Lu said, "I'm just stating my position, please continue." Feng Yin said, "In this 9 regions, every few hundred or thousands of years, there will be a glorious era where heroes come forth in large numbers. Now, with the growth of your generation of young people, I'm afraid the glorious and turbulent era is not far away. Little Lu Li and Yao Er are the top cultivators, but their flaws are also very serious. They can't support the sky of Lingjian school. Therefore, today I confer the honor of the lead disciple to you. I hope that in the future, you can live up to this title and become the worthy lead disciple of Spirit Sword Sect." Wang Lu was silent for a moment and then said to the sect leader with a smile, "Rest assured, I like this mountain very much. I like this sect and the people in this sect very much." Feng Yin suddenly asked, "So, what about your master?" Wang Lu was stunned for a moment and then somewhat embarrassedly said, "Well, if one day she and my mother fall into the river together, I can consider saving my mother first, and then hit her with a brick." This time, it was the sect leader's turn to fall into silence. After a long time, the old man sighed with emotion. "In her life she seems to be free and easy, but in fact she's lonely. You better take care of yourself." Chapter 172. The time of the immortal cultivation was not short. Since the competition between the two sects, 5 years seemed to have slipped away in the blink of an eye. In the past 5 years, the Lingjian school had returned to its former tranquil and contented rhythm. The disciples cultivated, studied, and lived step by step. The elders from time to time went out to wander, sometimes went into seclusion on the mountain, and sometimes solved the doubts of the disciples. In the past 5 years, the disciples who had high hopes began to gradually grow up. Yu Yun, Yu Xinyao, Wen Bao, Zhu Qin. One after another they successfully reached the foundation establishment stage. The side effects of the intensive cultivation before the competition between the two sects had also been offset, and the disciples had taken a solid step forward on the immortal cultivation path. As for Wang Lu, that would be another level of existence. As the lead disciple of the Lingjian school, Wang Lu's 5 years of cultivation experience was enough to make most of the Spirit Sword sect's disciples envious. The resources that the sect had invested in him were several times more than that of the average disciple. He was indeed in line with the position of the lead disciple of the sect, which gathered the entire sect's power to train him. The reason why Wang Lu didn't hesitate to get the lead disciple treatment in addition to suppressing his unreliable master, was so that he could walk a bit faster on the immortal cultivation path. Of course, it was not because of a sense of crisis. Although he had a conversation with the sect leader 5 years ago on the stellar peak, which vaguely revealed that there might be a big change in the near future for a deity stage cultivator, the concept of near was likely to refer to 100 or 200 years or even longer, far from the time to worry about it. Wang Lu's eagerness to cultivate was mostly due to his love of cultivation. He liked cultivation, like non-phase method, like the process of perfecting his jade mansion, quenching his primordial spirit and solidifying his sword bone. He incomparably enjoyed the feeling of being stronger than the day before. His void spirit root and non-phase method were far from perfect. In the process of cultivation he would always encounter various obstacles. Some of them could be taken shortcuts, while others could only be solved with time, energy and resources. At this time, it was naturally unreliable to count on the impoverished non-phase peak, and the privilege of the lead disciple could play a great role. A qualified adventurer was bound to be a leveling maniac. After 5 years of crazy leveling, he had smoothly entered the middle level of the foundation establishment realm. At this point, Wang Lu had been cultivating for 10 years. Reaching the middle level of the foundation establishment realm in 10 years was considered quite fast among the geniuses of the Wanxian League. Not to mention that he also had the Great Heart Demon Oath to strengthen his non-phase method system. His comprehensive strength had become the top level among the younger generation. However, to say that they could leave all of their peers behind was not necessarily true. In the past 5 years, everyone had been making progress, such as the disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect who had been patiently waiting for revenge. Among them, the eldest brother Zhan Zai entered the high-level foundation establishment stage a year after he returned to the immortal sect. His progress was incredibly fast. After the promotion, he returned to the Spirit Sword Mountain as promised and paid a visit. Then sure enough he was once again defeated by the hands of Lu Li. Because Lu Li had also made amazing progress in this 1 year, the gap between her and Zhan Zai had widened a bit, which almost made Zhan Zai desperate. In the past year he went deep into the sect's experiential learning place and experienced all kinds of hardships to have this kind of progress. However, unexpectedly he still couldn't keep up with the footsteps of the other party. Zhan Zai's dispirited back caused the elders of the Lingjian school to sigh with emotion. Zhan Zai, Lu Li, Wang Lu. This group of peerless geniuses that made many cultivators sigh with emotion, each had their own lucky chance, but without exception they were particularly persistent in immortal cultivation. Zhan Zai might have done a lot of things in the past year, but how could Lu Li be lazy? In the past year, Lu Li had fought at least 100 battles and was seriously injured dozens of times. Several times, her jade mansion was shaken and her primordial spirit cracked, which nearly led to a catastrophe. How could there be no progress in such desperate struggle? As for the person who fought with Lu Li for more than 100 times, which contributed to her rapid progress, could there be anyone else? In the past 5 years, another reason why Wang Lu desperately cultivated was because of Lu Li. Since the decisive battle on the Cloud Tread rooftop, Lu Li had been pestering him. For a girl with a simple temperament, the defeat on the Cloud Tread rooftop didn't make her resentful. On the contrary, Wang Lu's mystical swordsmanship deeply attracted her, causing her to be intoxicated. Since her brilliant sword heart was completed, there had never been a cultivator with similar cultivation base to her who could block her flying sword head-on. And the way Luli expressed her favorable impression of him was to fight with her sword from time to time. Every time she would fight until the sky turned dark. Even if she was seriously injured, she would never get tired of it. In this regard, Wang Lu didn't refuse. Whether it was non-phase method or brilliant sword heart, both belonged to the category of methods that could be used in battle to nurture battle. Every time in actual combat it could be of great help. Moreover, the more the fight, the more different the style of the opponent, the greater the benefit. The effect of simply cultivating in seclusion was not that obvious. However, whether it was brilliant sword heart or non-phase method, there was no lack of change. The same opponent could bring a completely different fighting experience. In the past 5 years, the two of them fought nearly 1,000 battles, and almost every battle was different. With so many battles, naturally, it was impossible for him to win all of them. Wang Lu roughly calculated that the odds of winning against Lu Li was about 50-50. In the first 2 years he lost more than he won. Later on in the last 3 years he gradually recovered. However, it was still not too much of an advantage. Of course, compared to 5 years ago when he exhausted all his means, he was still unable to defeat Lu Li fair and square. 5 years later he was able to fight evenly with Lu Li, or even slightly better than her, which was already an extremely rare progress. If according to Wang Lu's popularized set of weighted value algorithm, his current comprehensive strength was about level 6 foundation establishment plus 20, while Lu Li was level 2 foundation establishment plus 16, which was almost equal to peak Shudan stage Xiao Ming. If the two people's attack and defense were calculated separately, the highest could even reach more than plus 25, entering the level of King Pill. In the past 5 years, Wang Lu and Lu Li, in addition to their cultivation-based gains, they also had a friendship that was forged through nearly 1,000 battles. 5 years ago, the two successor disciples were just nodding acquaintances, but 5 years later they have become good friends. In Wang Lu's words, Lu Li was mankind's best friend. On this day, Wang Lu had just finished his breakfast and cleaned up the tableware when he heard the lively and cheerful voice of a girl full of vitality coming from outside the house. Wang Lu, I'm here to play with you." Then a colorful cloud flashed before his eyes, and Lu Li was already standing in front of him, smiling like a flower. Wang Lu looked at the girl and nodded. "Sit down." Lu Li immediately sat at the table with a straight posture. "Stretch out your hand." The girl stretched out her slender jade-like hand. "Good girl." Then Wang Lu touched her small head, took out a few pieces of candy from his pocket, and put them in her hand. "Eat it." "Eat." Lu Li smiled charmingly, put the candy into her mouth and then vaguely said, "Do you want to fight?" "Damn, still want to fight? Didn't we just fight yesterday?" However, Lu Li unexpectedly uttered out a philosophical sentence. "Yesterday we had a meal, today we still have to eat." "Young girl, don't be too demanding." Wang Lu snappily flicked her forehead. "In the next few days I probably won't be able to fight, so I'm going to go on a long trip." Lu Li nodded and said as if it was a matter of course, "Of course we're going to fight outside the house. Master said that we absolutely can't fight inside the house. Otherwise if we break something I won't be able to eat dinner." Going on a long trip and going out are two different concepts. After knowing each other for 5 years, Wang Lu had a very high tolerance for Lu Li's IQ. He patiently explained, "I'm going to go down the mountain to Cloud region, which will take about 10 days to half a month. During this period I can't accompany you to fight." Lu Li was surprised. "You want to go down the mountain? I'll be lonely." "Then find a cucumber by yourself." Wang Lu helplessly shook his head. "I don't intend to go, but unfortunately I can't disobey Master's order." Lu Li asked, "I remember you said that you're now the lead disciple, under one person but above tens of thousands of people. Your idiot Master's words have no binding force on you at all." "The problem is, this time she persuaded the sect leader, so I can't do anything about it." Wang Lu shrugged. "That slut said that I, as the lead disciple of the sect, have been staying on the mountain for too long, wasting the honor of being the lead disciple. Now that I've been cultivating for 10 years, it's time for me to go down the mountain to wander the world and boost the sect's influence. That's simply absurd. If she really wants to improve the sect's influence, wouldn't it be better for her to run around naked in front of Xingjing sect's gate? This is clearly a retaliation." Lu Li curiously asked, "Retaliation? What?" Wang Lu frowned. "Because she reported to the sect leader that she tried to steal the sect's assets? Refused to be a guarantor for the loan? Asked Aya to cook dinner for her? There are too many reasons it's hard to choose. In short, because of her, I can't accompany you to play on the mountain for the next few days." "Oh." The girl listlessly drooped her head, looking pitiful. Wang Lu had a second thought. I can take you down the mountain together. Down the mountain together? Is that really okay? Lu Li's eyes immediately lit up. There are a lot of fun things down the mountain. Unfortunately, my master has been blocking me from going. Wang Lu said, nonsense, with your IQ no one would be at ease to let you go down the mountain alone. 8 years ago, when the sect organized the disciples to go down the mountain for experiential learning, Lu Li ate and played. Along the way she ran into trouble all the way to the Blood Cloud Gorge and even killed the 12 Blood Cloud demons. This experience sounded awe-inspiring and domineering, but her master, the Master of Brilliant Peak, was nearly scared to death. However, if she was with him, there shouldn't be any problem. In the past 5 years, Lu Li had been trained by him to be as obedient as Hua Hua, and his fourth uncle was also particularly open-minded, allowing his precious disciple to be his pet to tease. But then again, in the past 5 years, with Wang Lu watching over her, the number of times Lu Li ran into trouble was indeed a lot less. And this time Wang Lu was ordered to go down the mountain. If he was alone it would indeed be boring. Among his good friends, Yu Xinyao, Wen Bao and the others, their cultivation base had been pulled apart. Only Lu Li, who not only had similar strength, but also complemented each other in offense and defense. Moreover, they also had a tacit understanding from 5 years of fighting, which could be called a perfect combination. When Wang Lu asked Zhou Ming about this matter, Zhou Ming very happily nodded. Okay, actually, I have long wanted to arrange her to go down the mountain for experiential learning. If you go with her, I can rest assured. This child is pure in mind and doesn't know the sinister side of the world. She needs a sinister person to teach her. You are willing to help her, so I should thank you. Thank you, uncle, for your praise. Then I will accept this coolly without any politeness. After leaving the Brilliant Peak, Wang Lu went back to the non-phase peak to call Lu Li, led the mottled dog and embarked on the journey to Cloud Region. Chapter 173. Lu Li, let me ask you, what are we going to do down the mountain this time? Eat, drink, and be merry. Guess again? Eat all over the 9 regions? Continue to guess? Are all my guesses wrong? Nonsense, of course not. In the face of Wang Lu's roar, Lu Li innocently blinked her eyes. How could this be? We clearly said it's to eat, drink, and be merry. Wang Lu unceremoniously reached out and knocked the girl's head, ignoring the fact that Lu Li entered the sect earlier than him and was essentially his senior sister. Before we went down the mountain I actually said it once and now I repeat it for the second time. Listen, we have 3 things to do when we go down the mountain. The first is to send a letter to my master. She has a good friend in the Grand Cloud Mountain of Cloud Region, and I want to give this letter to her. The second is to record what we see and hear along the way to increase our experience, broaden our horizons, and quench our primordial spirit and immortal heart. The third is to find a way to pick a fight, collect prestige, and open the sect's title as soon as possible. Then along the way we can eat, drink, and be merry, living a free and unrestrained life. But you only remember the last sentence? Lu Li pursed her mouth. The first part is too complicated, I don't understand it at all. Forget it, just remember one thing. Whatever I tell you to do, do it. Seeing that Lu Li was no longer making a fuss, Wang Lu sighed with emotion that after 5 years, Lu Li was still the same as before. He took out a bag of marinated beef cubes from his mustard seed bag and threw it to the girl as a reward for being obedient. Lu Li giggled, opened the paper bag and began to eat non-stop, which made the mottled dog endlessly envious. They were both humans' best friends, but this disparity in treatment was really heartbreaking. Lu Li was even more proud of herself. She swaggeringly licked the minced meat and salt on her fingers. Her scallion-like fingers were immediately stained with a layer of crystal. Her expression of enjoying the delicious food made the stupid dog salivate uncontrollably. However, after eating half of the bag, Lu Li carefully put away the beef cubes, no longer greedy. Seeing this, Wang Lu curiously asked, "Why don't you eat it?" Lu Li very seriously replied, "If I eat it now, I won't be able to eat it later." Wang Lu was amused. What kind of logic is that? Why can't I eat it in the future? Master said, when the disciples of Spirit Sword sect go down the mountain for experiential learning, they must seriously experience the sufferings of the world of mortals, they must not covet extravagance. In any case, the last time I went down the mountain I was always hungry, and the spirit stones and silver that Master gave me were all spent in no time. How many spirit stones and silver did Martial Uncle give you? Fortunately, Lu Li wasn't stupid enough to count with her fingers. She quickly replied, 5,000 taels of silver, 300 spirit stones? Objectively speaking, Zhou Ming wasn't stingy. With Lu Li's peak qi refining stage cultivation base at that time, she didn't need to spend that much. 5,000 silvers and 300 spirit stones were enough to support her life for several years. However, it was the first time that Lu Li went down the mountain, so she didn't know about moderation, nor did she understand the price of goods. In a bustling capital city's imperial banquet restaurant, she ate all kinds of delicacies. In just a few days, her traveling expenses were completely exhausted, and she had no choice but to swallow her saliva and dejectedly leave. In the following year, she really experienced a lot of hardships. Listening to Lu Li reminiscing about the bitterness and thinking about the sweetness, and how she treasured a bag of beef cubes, Wang Lu could see that this child had really suffered a lot the last time she went down the mountain. She already had a psychological shadow in her heart when she went down the mountain for experiential learning. He couldn't help but laugh and pat the girl's head. This time, since you're going down the mountain with me, you don't need to worry too much. Martial uncle entrusted you to me not to let you starve here. Lu Li was actually puzzled. This time, when she went down the mountain, the traveling expenses that her master gave her were not as much as the last time. And Wang Lu. Nanfei's Peak has always been famous for its poverty. However, while the girl was still confused, she suddenly saw a silvery light coming from the horizon, and its target was exactly her and Wang Lu. At this time, they had just left the boundary of the Spirit Sword Mountain, but they didn't know who would come looking for them. Lu Li's eyes turned and immediately swept a glance at that rapid and hazy silvery light. It was actually something that was recorded in the Teng Cloud Hall's Book of Strange Objects. Cloud Wave Boat was a commonly used flying vehicle by cultivators nowadays. Its speed was extremely fast and the flying process was smooth and comfortable, thus it was quite popular. However, this silver flying boat was 100 times more luxurious than the one in the textbook. Even Lu Li knew how precious the layer of refined silver cloud on its surface was. Moreover, its flying speed was faster and smoother than what was recorded in the textbook. The girl's sword heart sensed that the flying boat was not hostile, so she withdrew her gaze and ignored it. No matter how good the flying boat was in any case, it couldn't be used as an entrance. However, a moment later the flying boat descended from the sky and stopped in front of the two of them. From the silver boat, a white-clothed cultivator slowly walked out and respectfully saluted in front of Wang Lu. "Greetings, Mr. Director." Wang Lu smiled. "Old Yi, long time no see, your cultivation has improved a lot." The one who came down from the flying boat was the Wisdom Sect's Vice Sect Leader, Intelligence Revenue Services Deputy Director Yi Chuchen. It had been nearly 8 years since Wang Lu annexed the Seven Star Sect with the Wisdom Sect's Wisdom Sect Sect Leader. At that time, the Seven Star Sect Leader had completely adapted to the Vice Sect Leader's identity. Now that he thought about it, Yi Chuchen's heart was filled with endless gratitude when he was defeated by Wang Lu and then incorporated into the sect. If not for Wang Lu, he would just be a low-level loose cultivator. Now, although the Wisdom Sect was still the most junior sect in the Wanxian League, his identity and status had undergone earth-shaking changes. And as a cultivator, he had gained too many benefits. First, when Wang Lu perfected the cultivation method for him, the bottleneck that had shackled him for many years suddenly disappeared. Second, as the Wisdom Sect's Vice Sect Leader, he had countless privileges. With a large number of resources, it would be difficult for his cultivation not to advance by leaps and bounds. After a few years, although his cultivation level had only advanced by 1 level, for a person with mediocre aptitude like him, advancing another level in the Shudan stage was more than just a step further. Moreover, his comprehensive strength had doubled. When they first met as the Seven Star Sect Leader, Yi Chuchen was just a level 9 Shudan -3 dregs. But now he was an 8th level Shudan Xiaoming, which was equivalent to advancing by 4 levels in 8 years, advancing by leaps and bounds. If he didn't have to deal with the sect's affairs, which involved a lot of energy, his achievement could be even higher. All of this, of course, was thanks to Wang Lu. Therefore, Yi Chuchen had long been loyal and devoted to Wang Lu, even if in recent years Wang Lu had been concentrating on cultivating in the Spirit Sword Mountain and had increasingly let go of the sect's affairs. "Mr. Director, as soon as I received your instruction, I immediately came here. Moreover, according to your instruction, I brought you this custom-made Cloud Wave boat, Cloud Wave 2000. With that, Yi Chuchen chanted an incantation. That 30 feet long, completely black flying boat opened an entrance, revealing the inside of the boat. Looking from the entrance, the inside was unexpectedly vast, far more spacious than it looked. Lu Li's eyes immediately widened, thinking that this was completely different from what was written in the book. The book said that the Cloud Wave boat was easy to use and had a high performance-to-price ratio. However, the flying space was narrow, and the cultivators were often extremely uncomfortable. But now it seemed like that was completely wrong. Seeing Lu Li's puzzled expression, Wang Lu smiled and explained, "This is the local tyrant version of the Cloud Wave boat that I asked my men to go to the mysterious Sky Mansion's overseas Chinese crafts hall to customize. Inside the boat, there is a separate immortal cave which has all the necessary tools. Come on, let's go inside first." Upon entering the flying boat, the girl's heart was even more shocked. It turned out that the inside of the boat was not only the hall that she could see from the entrance. Along the edge of the hall, there were also stairs leading to the top and bottom. Who knew how many rooms were hidden inside? In the girl's incomparable astonishment, Yi Chuchen once again chanted the incantation to close the entrance. The flying boat soared into the air, but the inside of the boat was stable without a trace of shaking. After starting the flying boat, Yi Chuchen said to Wang Lu, "Unfortunately, the craftsmen of the third rank and above in the Heavenly Crafts Hall are not here. Therefore, the immortal cave inside the boat can only be done to this extent. You said that the landscape, grass and trees, as well as the singing and dancing puppets can't be realized. This subordinate is incompetent. Please forgive me, Mr. Director." Wang Lu went straight to the lounge chair in the hall and then waved his hand. "No problem. To be able to do this in just 10 days is already not bad. After all, we're not supreme customers, so we haven't spent enough points. Later on, if there's an opportunity, we'll just make do with it." With that, Wang Lu looked at Lu Li, who was curiously exploring around the boat, and then said with a smile, "Old Yi, take out the prepared dishes." Yes. Before long, a table of luxurious dishes was served. Lu Li, who was crazily running upstairs and downstairs, was immediately attracted. She incredulously looked at the dishes in the hall. Heavenly fragrant rain dew, vermilion jade 5 flowers, emerald cabbage, mysterious iced cheese. Previously in the Imperial Feast restaurant, Lu Li had never seen such luxurious dishes. Was this real? Even with her brilliant sword heart's clear temperament, she still couldn't extricate herself from this incomparable shock. In just a moment of daze, Lu Li couldn't help but continuously swallow her saliva. Wang Lu laughed. "What are you staring at? This is for you to eat." Really? Wang Lu picked up a piece of fat and tender lamb chop and threw it to the stupid dog, which then swallowed it in one bite. "If you don't want to eat, there's no more." I want to eat." Before long, a table of dishes that could feed more than 10 people was cleaned up by Wang Lu and his 2 best friends. With Lu Li's clear and transparent physique, it was very difficult for her to feel full. However, at this time, after eating a table of dishes, she couldn't help but feel satisfied. "Old Yi, since you've eaten and drank to your heart's content, you can start the program now." Yes. Then she heard the sound of bamboo flute and spirals in the hall. Wang Lu leaned back on the recliner, slightly rocking back and forth in satisfaction. Lu Li couldn't help but be curious. "Wang Lu, this flying boat, is it you who bought it?" "Yes." "How much is this going to cost?" Even with Lu Li's naivety, she also knew that such a luxurious flying boat must have a sky-high price. At least, just the table of dishes alone would cost tens of thousands of silver coins, or hundreds of spirit stones. Wang Lu smiled. "Preferential price, 800,000 spirit stones." 800,000? Lu Li incredulously repeated the number. "Good, so rich." Wang Lu laughed. "Public expense to buy an official car, of course I have money." "Public expense?" "Yes, didn't I tell you? I have my own business down the mountain, a sect." Wang Lu nodded and then earnestly said, "Although Wisdom Sect is founded by me, a qualified manager must clearly distinguish between public and private accounts. The money that should be spent by the public can't be spent on private accounts." Lu Li felt that there was something wrong with Wang Lu's self-righteous explanation, but she couldn't point it out. After gawking for a moment, Lu Li blankly said, "But Master said to go down the mountain for experiential learning, we must be diligent and thrifty." Wang Lu waved his hand to interrupt her. "What a joke. I, the dignified leader of Wisdom Sect, every word and deed represents the face of tens of thousands of people. If I am diligent and thrifty, it would only make people look down on Wisdom Sect." With that, Wang Lu confidently lied down. Little Lu Li, learn well, this is called leader treatment. Chapter 174. The Cloud Wave boat went all the way to the northwest, flying toward the cloud region. This flying boat soared high in the sky and could travel tens of thousands of miles a day. Even with the vastness of the 9 regions, it only needed 1 or 2 days to fly out of the Blue River region and enter the neighboring Cloud region. Regarding this, Luli was full of amazement and embarrassment. Because before she went down the mountain, her master had seriously warned her that on this experiential learning trip to the Cloud region, she must observe and remember a lot along the way. The last experiential learning trip had completely turned into a gourmet trip, so this time she must not mess around like that. With their speed, it would take them at least 10 days to reach the Cloud region, and along the way they must carefully observe and think. However, looking at the white clouds outside the flying boat as well as the clear sky, Lu Li's simple mind couldn't help but doubt. If they flew like this, they would arrive at the Cloud region in less than 2 days, so should they remember these things along the way? However, since her master had requested it, she could only remember it. Although Lu Li was naive and ignorant of worldly affairs, her memory was excellent. She stood at the edge of the hall, looking at the waterfall-like receding clouds outside the window. Her mind had already memorized all the scene in front of her. She even automatically imagined the tumbling clouds into their respective images. For example, some were like oval-shaped barbecue, some were like square barbecue, some were like dripping oil barbecue, and the girl earnestly memorized them. She was ready to go back and seriously tell her master about the result of her memory. She believed that the old man would certainly be happy. As for Wang Lu and Yi Chuchen, at this time, they were sitting around a tea table in the hall, listening to Yi Chuchen's report on the work of the past few years. In the past few years when Wang Lu was cultivating on the mountain, the summary of the wisdom sect's work would be sent to the non-phase peak every 10 days. Therefore, he had a general understanding of the situation. However, some of the important details needed to be supplemented by Yi Chuchen verbally. In general, the development of the wisdom sect had entered a good upward track. Even without Wang Lu's hands-on support, the wisdom sect still had a foundation for its own development. Currently, the number of wisdom sect's followers, broadly counted, had exceeded tens of millions of people, and the Great Ming country as the foundation of the wisdom sect, was managed like an iron bucket. Yi Chuchen, Li Nana, and Taoist Ming Yun, these 3 giants in the Great Ming country, their prestige was not inferior to the Prime Minister. The sect's mobilization and organization ability could be said to be against the heaven. With the combined power of tens of thousands of people, plus the huge investment from Wang Lu 5 years ago, the wisdom sect's infrastructure has achieved great achievements. The output of low-grade spirit objects and spirit plants was so large that even the mysterious Sky Mansion paid attention to it. Before the end of the year, they signed an agreement to establish a long-term cooperative relationship. However, just by relying on these basic constructions, the annual income that the wisdom sect could obtain had already made people who knew the inside story dumbfounded. If it was simply to amass money at this time, the wisdom sect had already entered the harvesting period. Wang Lu's amazing investment in the past would, at most, return it in 10 years. And if they carried out some simple capital operations, the earnings would be even more amazing. However, Wang Lu's ambition was not limited to this. Because spirit stones gradually lost their value when they reached the top. Tens of thousands of spirit stones might be able to buy a Taoist master of King Pil as a thug, but even with 1 million spirit stones, it was still difficult to invite a Taoist master of Yuanying stage to come forward. In the mysterious Sky Mansion, they could show their VIP status and buy an 8th-rank spiritual treasure with hundreds of thousands of spirit stones. However, higher-rank spiritual treasures were priceless. And Wang Lu's solution was very simple: to upgrade the industry and in the future to be self-sufficient. To achieve this grand blueprint, the biggest problem was the lack of talent. Currently, the wisdom sect had tens of millions of followers, but the several vice sect leaders were only Shudan stage cultivators. Moreover, among Shudan stage cultivators they were not considered strong. Although they spent money to hire several King Pil level thugs, overall they were still far from a mature sect. What to do? Very simple: throw money. Right now, the wisdom sect was lacking in everything but not in money. Although it was very difficult to attract those famous people with genuine talent by relying on spirit stones alone, if those famous people didn't come, a few broken cultivators who couldn't stay in the big sects would still be better than a loose cultivator like Yi Chuchen. Wang Lu asked the wisdom sect to spend a lot of money to attract talented people and provide them with extremely luxurious welfare. This strategy had been implemented for more than half a year, and it had really attracted a lot of people from the big sects who, although they were not in their eyes, were incomparably precious to the wisdom sect, which played a great role in promoting the wisdom sect. And as the leader of the wisdom sect, Wang Lu naturally enjoyed the due leadership treatment. In fact, if the leader didn't take the lead, it would instead make the onlookers doubt your strength. and Wang Lu wanted to use this Lingyun 2000 to show the world. Wisdom sect is rich and overbearing, full of confidence. Recruiting talented people, welcome to join. After handing over the sect's work to Yi Chuchen, only half a day had passed, but this Shudan stage vice sect leader already felt physically and mentally exhausted. Reporting work and listening to instructions in front of Wang Lu was indeed a bit stressful. Although the young man in front of him was a stage lower than him, Yi Chuchen was very clear about the gap in strength between the two of them. 8 years ago, when Wang Lu was still in the qi cultivating stage, he was already able to use his non-phase sword to contend against the 7-star sword art that he was so proud of. But now, after 8 years, he was afraid that he didn't even have the qualification to make a move against him. With that stupid model dog, he was not his opponent. Moreover, although Wang Lu's tone was calm, his words were always accurate. Yi Chuchen's mistakes in the past few years were easily picked out by him. Although he didn't criticize him, it still made him break out in cold sweat. Fortunately, the unbearable time was finally over. Yi Chuchen sighed in relief, smiled, and introduced the local conditions and customs of the Cloud region to Wang Lu. The Cloud region was located in the northwest of the Blue River region. As an important part of the 9 regions, it had a vast territory, rich resources, and so on. Needless to say, its biggest characteristic was chaos. Unlike the Blue River region and the other regions that were suppressed by the 5 unique of the Wanxian League, the Cloud region never had a particularly powerful deterrent force, not even the Wanxiang sect or the Flowing Cloud sect. The land of the region was divided by dozens of 3rd and 4th rank sects, such as the White Dragon Temple and Merciful Cloud Mountain. To put it nicely, it was like 100 flowers blooming, but to put it bluntly, it was like a warlord separatist rule. However, this situation also had its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that the situation was chaotic, which was beneficial for sects like the Wisdom sect to fish in troubled waters. The disadvantage was that if they were not careful, they would capsize. The strength of the Wisdom sect was still not comparable to those 3rd and 4th rank sections. Therefore, several days ago, Wang Lu sent a letter to Yi Chuchen, asking him to prepare the Cloud Wave boat and go to the Cloud region together. This made Yi Chuchen very curious. What exactly did the director want to do in the Cloud region this time? It's nothing much. I'm just delivering a letter for Master, Wang Lu said lightly. Yi Chuchen was a little surprised and annoyed. Can't you just leave the messy task of delivering the letter to the people of SF Express? Why do you need the Ministry of Labor to come here? Wang Lu chuckled. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. At the foot of the mountain, I am the leader of the Wisdom sect, the sect leader. I'm just the chief disciple on the mountain. I don't have the right to put on airs. Besides, apart from delivering the letter, I also have my own things to do. Old Yi, is there anything fun in the Grand Cloud Mountains surrounding area recently? Yi Chuchen had done his homework. After thinking for a while, he said, Grand Cloud Mountain is in the Grand Cloud Empire. There are White Dragon Temple, Merciful Cloud Mountain, and other high-rank cultivation sects above it. Below it is the imperial power of the Grand Cloud Empire suppressing it, so it's relatively stable. However, recently, sects from other states established branches near Grand Cloud Mountain. Their attitudes are rude and unreasonable, so there's a lot of conflict. Hearing this, Wang Lu's heart skipped a beat. He guessed that the matter his master had entrusted to him was likely related to this matter. Thus, he perked up and said, Oh? Tell me the details. Yi Chuchen gawked and couldn't help but wryly smile. He only knew the general information about the Grand Cloud Mountain, so how could he know the details? Nevertheless, Yi Chuchen still recounted the outline of the matter to her. The one who stirred up the trouble was the 3rd-rank sect Beastmaster School in the Southern Heaven region. More than a year ago, many elders of the Beastmaster School, along with hundreds of disciples, traveled thousands of miles from the Southern Heaven region to the Cloud region and established a branch near the Grand Cloud Mountain. Regarding this, the host, the Grand Cloud Empire, did not stop them. On the contrary, the imperial family and the court were happy to see this happen. Being able to have a not-so-strong nor not-so-weak foreign cultivation sect settle in their territory was beneficial for them to play the balancing act among the other immortal cultivation sects. As for the local sects in the Grand Cloud Empire, they didn't oppose it. First, 3 years ago, the cultivation base of the Beastmaster School sect leader had advanced, reaching the peak Yuanying stage. The Beastmaster School was already considered powerful among the 3rd-rank sects, much stronger than the 4th-rank sects like White Dragon Temple. Second, there were no valuable resources in the vicinity of the Grand Cloud Mountain, so they could take advantage of the situation to sell a favor, so why not? However, only a year later, the harmonious atmosphere couldn't be maintained. The Beast Master School had a conflict with the local government. Several cultivators injured nearby civilians, and after the government sent people to interrogate them, they also injured the officers and insulted the officials. This kind of thing was actually not a big deal. After all, cultivators were aloof and lawless. However, when the cultivators of White Dragon Temple were entrusted to go to the Beast Master School's branch to demand an explanation, they were humiliated and abused. Later, it escalated into a violent conflict, and the contradiction began to intensify. Fortunately, later, under the mediation of the Wuxia League, the situation didn't further escalate. The Beast Master School's branch leader came forward to apologize, and White Dragon Temple and the Grand Cloud Empire reluctantly accepted it. But the root problem is not solved. I think this peace won't last long. The root problem? Yi Chuchen shook his head and said with a disgusted face, the Beast Master School who came here to establish a branch is a relatively radical and extreme sect. Their three views are completely different from ordinary people, but they are also self-righteous and extreme, never allowing any opposition. What do you mean specifically? Yi Chuchen said, Mr. Director, you also know that the cultivators of the Beast Master School often associate with spirit birds and spirit beasts and form a deep relationship with them, so. Wang Lu's mind turned and he roughly guessed the cause of the matter. He couldn't help but sneer. Interesting, this time the opponent is a small animal rights organization? Speaking to this, Wang Lu turned his head, looked at the mottled dog on the ground, and then looked at Lu Li who was standing by the window looking at the clouds. Damn, you guys actually met your family? Chapter 175. What happened to the Beast Master School on the Grand Cloud Mountain was not surprising. There were thousands of sects in the Wuxia League, and most of them inevitably had to deal with mortals. There were only a few sects like Kunlun Immortal Sect that didn't eat the common people's food. And as long as they had dealings, conflicts were inevitable, so it was not unusual. In addition, the sects in the Wuxia League were not few in number. The Beast Master School, which liked to associate with spirit beasts, was relatively mild. After all, the whole conflict was limited to injuring a few people, which damaged the face of the Grand Cloud Empire's imperial family and White Dragon Temple. If they were to encounter those truly extreme sects, they would directly tie a few low-level disciples to themselves with lava essence, exploding runes and other such things, and then launch a suicide attack while shouting nonsense. That would be the most splendid scene. The only thing that could arouse Wang Lu's interest was the Beast Master School. As a third-rank sect, although it was at the bottom of the high-rank sects, it was still a high-rank sect. White Dragon Temple, Merciful Cloud Mountain, and the others were sects that had been around for thousands of years in the Grand Cloud Empire, but they were only fourth-rank sects, which belonged to the middle-rank sections. This gap was very important to Wang Lu, because the efficiency of using high-rank sects to increase his reputation was not something that middle-rank sects could compare to. And according to the newly issued additional rule regarding the lead disciple in the Lingjin school, in addition to the title of lead disciple, if a disciple did something that boosted the sect's reputation, they would get corresponding points according to the impact and other factors. And by using these points, they could obtain a variety of sect titles granted by the Heavenly Sword Hall. After all, the number of lead disciple was limited, which was not conducive to stimulating the overall enthusiasm of the sect. However, there was no limit on the title, which could let 100 flowers bloom. And the sect title was not only an honor, but also a substantial reward. The Heavenly Sword Hall would, according to the characteristics of the title, forge the corresponding level equipment for the disciple. And how could the Heavenly Sword Hall's products be ordinary? High-rank magical treasures were not rare, and even spiritual treasures could be tailored. For the Wisdom Sect's leader with a net worth of hundreds of millions of spirit stones, spiritual treasures might not be too rare, but tailor-made spiritual treasures were not common. 800,000 spirit stones might be able to buy an 8th-rank spiritual treasure, but if he wanted to buy one that was as good as the Sword of Mount Kuan, even if Wang Lu invested 8 million spirit stones, it would still be difficult. This time, when he descended the mountain, he would grind up his reputation, unlock his title and exchange for treasures. These were the most important things. According to the school's point system, if Wang Lu was able to flatten this beast-taming school's division, he would be able to earn more points than if he were to challenge the White Dragon Temple and Merciful Cloud Mountain. Of course, with Wang Lu's current ability, going to find a group of people founded by Taoist King Pil was no different from seeking his own death. Although the beast-taming school's reputation wasn't good, it wasn't evil. Going to cause trouble for them without rhyme or reason was unreasonable. Wang Lu pondered for a moment and decided to put this matter in his mind for the time being. While thinking, Yi Chuchen eagerly asked, "Mr. Director, could it be that the Spirit Sword Immortals and the Beast Taming School have some kind of friendship with each other?" Wang Lu frowned. "No, we don't have any kind of friendship with anyone, we're just a lone wolf." Yi Chuchen hesitated. Should he praise the Lingjian school for being noble and virtuous, or should he join the director in ridiculing the sect? The scale was really hard to grasp. After thinking about it, the vice sect leader decided to change the topic. "Then I wonder who is Mr. Director going to send the letter to? Although the Wisdom sect hasn't opened up their territory in the Grand Cloud Empire, it's still convenient to inquire about some information." Wang Lu looked at the letter in his hand and said, "I haven't seen that person before. I only heard a few words from my master. However, from the name it should be a bald man." Zen. Yi Chuchen felt strange. There are not many Zen cultivators in the Grand Cloud Empire. There's not even a Zen sect in the vicinity of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Could it be a loose cultivator? But it doesn't matter. Can you tell me the name of that master? Perhaps I know it. Go Ruo. Yi Chuchen froze for a long time and then softly asked, "What? Have you heard of Zen Master Go Ruo?" "This subordinate is ignorant and inexperienced, so I really haven't heard of it. However, I can mobilize the Wisdom Sect's disciples, or ask the Wanxian League-related organization in the Grand Cloud Empire." Before he could finish, Wang Lu coldly glanced at him as if he was looking at an idiot. "This time, find a city near the Grand Cloud Mountain and stop there. After that, you don't need to care about it and you don't need to inquire about the information." Yi Chuchen was startled, and then he secretly scolded himself for being muddle-headed. Wang Lu was very likely to find trouble with the third-rank beast taming school. If the Wisdom sect insisted on playing a role in this, once it was discovered, he couldn't afford the consequences. A day later, the Cloud Wave boat landed in the Grand Cloud Empire's territory, outside the Moral Enlightenment City on the southern side of the Grand Cloud Mountain. The Moral Enlightenment City was a prefectural city in the Grand Cloud Empire. Its scale was huge and its population was in the millions. Inside the city, it was bustling with traffic. Moreover, what made Yi Chuchen amazed was that this city was filled with the aura of cultivators. In addition to those ordinary houses with exquisite workmanship and materials, there were also a lot of cultivators' residences. For example, there were no less than 10 floating courtyards. However, the residents of the city regarded this as normal. Obviously, they had long adapted to it. And this was just a prefectural city in the Grand Cloud Empire. If it were the capital, it was unknown how prosperous it would be. Yi Chuchen couldn't help but sigh. Alas, this is indeed the Cloud region. A prefectural city has such a scene. Even the capital of the Great Ming country is quite inferior to it. No wonder people say that the Blue River region is the weakest in the 9 regions. There is indeed a gap. Wang Lu said, "If there is a gap, then catch up. What's the use of sighing about it? Or do you want to jump ship and emigrate?" Yi Chuchen knew that he had repeatedly said the wrong things, which had deducted a lot of points in the leader's heart. Thus, while secretly cursing himself for being stupid, he tactfully excused himself, no longer bothering Wang Lu. After Yi Chuchen left, Wang Lu used a spell to put the Cloud Wave boat into his mustard seed bag. After that, he didn't hurry to enter the city. Instead, he carefully looked at the vast city outside the city. He always felt that there was something wrong with this city. Therefore, he reached out and patted Luli. "Little Luli, tell me your opinion." Luli wrinkled her nose. Her clear eyes reflected the outline of the city. Perhaps Luli would never be as smart and quick-witted as others, but because of her extremely simple temperament, she could keenly perceive the essence of things. 5 years ago, in the duel on the Grand Cloud platform, Luli was even earlier than the elders in the audience that Wang Lu had the Big Heart Demon Oath as well as the ability to reach the Foundation establishment stage. Her insight was outstanding. Seems to be sick. A moment later, Luli gave a simple and crisp conclusion. Then she took out the beef and happily ate it. Sick? Wang Lu pondered for a moment and had a general guess in his heart. Very well, let's go into the city first. This kind of bustling city should have local delicacies, right? Luli cheered. Okay. The model dog also began to bark non-stop, full of joy. After 1 person and 2 pets entered the city, they didn't show their cultivator identity. Just like the foreign tourists that could be seen everywhere in the Moral Enlightenment City, they curiously wandered around the city. Along the way, Wang Lu bought snacks for Luli and the stupid dog. The eating habits of the Cloud region and the Blue River region were indeed quite different, and the food in the city had its own characteristics. However, after walking 3 to 5 streets, Wang Lu found an unsurprising rule: meat was extremely rare. In a cold-cooked meat shop, Wang Lu asked for a few sausages and a few large pieces of smoked meat. While paying the bill, he casually asked, "Boss, do you have braised dog meat?" As soon as his voice fell, the face of the meat shop owner, who was as sturdy as an iron tower, changed dramatically. He subconsciously wanted to reach out and push Wang Lu out of the shop. However, at this time Wang Lu had already taken the sausages and was still paying. If he were to be pushed out like this, the business would be in vain. Thereupon, the boss hurriedly took a few steps forward, closed the shop door, and then angrily complained, "You two customers are really... It's fine if you're looking for trouble, but don't implicate me. Seeing you with a dog, I thought you were... I didn't expect you to be so insensible." Wang Lu was surprised. "Boss, what are you talking about? Buying a pile of your things and you're complaining instead? That's fine, I don't want that pile of sausages and smoked meat anymore. I'm leaving." The boss pulled back Wang Lu. "You don't know what's good for you. I'm telling you, you can say whatever you want in other places, but in this moral enlightenment city, it's best not to mention dog meat." He paused for a moment and then said with a helpless expression, "Not to mention dog meat, it's better to eat less of any kind of meat. I'm afraid that in a few years, everyone in this moral enlightenment city will become vegetarian." Wang Lu asked, "What's the reason for this? I've heard that this moral enlightenment city is famous far and near as a gourmet city. How did it become a vegetarian city?" The meat shop owner stuck his head out of the door and looked around. After confirming that there was no one around, he sat down and complained, "Isn't it because of that group of cultivators? You're an outsider, so you don't know. More than a year ago, a group of cultivators from the Beastmaster School came to the Grand Cloud Mountain to the north of this moral enlightenment city. Then they went around saying that this meat can't be eaten, that meat can't be eaten, and that the rules are greater than the law. Although they can't find trouble with you in the open, they can still make things difficult for you in the dark." Wang Lu was amused. "Beastmaster School? Don't tell me they rely on steamed buns and flour rolls to raise spirit beasts? Don't those fierce spirit beasts also eat meat as food?" "He who says they don't. Unfortunately, in their eyes we common people can't even compare to the birds and beasts they raise," the boss said, feeling even more vexed. "My shop 2 years ago was still the best business shop in this area. Now you see how many people still come to visit." Wang Lu nodded. "Then I have to thank you, boss, for reminding me. But it's actually not a big deal, right?" The boss said, "Yes, it's not like we can't eat any meat. Moreover, even if we don't eat meat, people won't die. Therefore, although everyone complains, their days can still go on. It's a pity that I, your father, have spent my entire life in this area, but I don't know how to eat in the future. It's just starting from the beginning." Hearing this, Wang Lu felt that he had already gathered enough information. He no longer chatted with the boss and went straight out the door. The Beastmaster School's influence in Moral Enlightenment City was still limited. Otherwise, just based on the boss' criticism of the Beastmaster School just now, he would be courting death. That being the case, as long as he didn't take the initiative to stir up trouble in the city, there wouldn't be any trouble. In theory. Chapter 176. Coming out from the butcher shop, Wang Lu and his 2 best friends went to the city center. After confirming the basic environment of the city, Wang Lu felt relieved. Beastmaster School's control over the Moral Enlightenment City was limited, and presumably, this division didn't regard this place as important. Most of their main force was in the vicinity of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Here, the ones promoting vegetarianism were mostly a few chi cultivating stage and foundation establishment stage juniors. The only troublesome problem was that, if these juniors were allowed to create a storm in the city, it could be seen that the influence of the local forces and even the Wuxia League was even weaker. He also didn't know if the relevant service organizations had closed down. For a city the size of the Moral Enlightenment City, generally the Wuxia League or the local big sects would set up an office here to receive wandering cultivators from all over the world. When Wang Lu was outside the city, he saw that there were more than 10 floating courtyards in the city center, as well as a large number of immortal cultivation facilities. It could be seen that the existence of cultivators was very common here, so there shouldn't be a shortage of offices. However, now that there were people from the Beastmaster School coming to stir up trouble, things might not go so smoothly. After walking for half an hour, plus several times asking for directions, Wang Lu finally found the Wuxia League office in the Moral Enlightenment City. It was a simple and exquisite small building with a plaque hanging on the door. Wanxian League Yunzhou Division Cloud Platform Hall Moral Enlightenment City Office. Well, obviously, the person in charge of this Yunzhou division was deeply influenced by the vernacular movement. Even the signboard was very approachable. The people of the Moral Enlightenment City were obviously familiar with this small building. Although it was located in the city center, there were not many pedestrians around, and there were no guards at the door. Wang Lu confidently entered the door and saw a spacious hall inside the building. A 23 or 24-year-old girl was sitting behind the counter. Her expression was somewhat lazy and indifferent. Seeing Wang Lu and the others come in, she hung a smile that was seriously lacking in warmth. To Taoist friends, welcome to the Moral Enlightenment City. Please register here according to the regulations, and then you can receive a guidebook prepared by me, and enjoy the corresponding specifications of convenient services. This was basically the general rule of the Wanxian League. Wang Lu took out his and Lu Li's documents from his mustard seed bag and handed them over, waiting for the verification. Oh, you Lu Yu Xian, people from the Skywater Lakes Yu clan? The girl in charge of reception used a spell to read the information in the certificate. Seeing the unique seal of the Yu clan of the Celestial Water Lake, she couldn't help but nod. Celestial Water Lake is a cultivation family. Although it's not very strong, it has a long history and can barely be considered a famous family, at least a regional famous family. The two cultivators in front of her seem to be mediocre, but since they're from a famous family, they at least know the rules and etiquette and won't cause any trouble. However, he didn't expect that the two golden documents in his hands were forged by Yu Xinyao under the request of Wang Lu. In this trip to the north to Cloud State, at least at the beginning, Wang Lu planned to keep a low profile. The few of them came here on the Cloud Wave boat. After entering the boundary of Cloud State, they activated the formation inside the boat to disguise themselves, hiding the cloud silver coating on the surface. It looked like an ordinary second-hand flying boat, which was in line with the identity of Yu Clan's cultivators. Here are 2 guidebooks, please keep them. They explain in detail the basic situation of the Moral Enlightenment City and its surrounding areas, as well as the matters to pay attention to. In addition, Wang Lu didn't wait for the receptionist girl to finish her words and directly handed over 3 spirit stones. I also want a senior guidebook. Seeing the spirit stones, the girl's eyes lit up. She quickly pulled out an obviously heavier book from the counter. The information recorded on it was more comprehensive and more important, so of course, it wouldn't be free. However, one book was only 2 spirit stones, so the extra spirit stone could be counted as her extra income. Wang Lu took the senior guidebook and put it away without looking at it. Then he handed over another spirit stone. I want to find someone. The girl was startled, and then her face revealed a difficult expression. This, I won't hide it from you. If it was 1 or 2 years ago, let alone looking for someone, as long as you can afford it, we can even buy someone. But now, the Wanxian League is preparing to withdraw from the Moral Enlightenment City. Although the basic business of the office is still preserved, there is no one left to continue doing it. Even if you pay the advance payment, it will be very difficult for us to produce results. Although she said that, the young lady quietly took the spirit stone. Wang Lu nodded and said, I see that the office in the Moral Enlightenment City is indeed somewhat dilapidated. However, although a lot of the business can't be done, I've stayed here for several years. If it's simple information, I can also help you investigate, the girl said, her eyes sparkling. Wang Lu smiled and handed over another 5 spirit stones. I want to find a person called Zen Master Go Ruang. Zen Master Go Ruang? The girl immediately frowned. I haven't heard of any famous Zen cultivators in the vicinity. Holding the 5 spirit stones in her hand, the girl didn't want to let go, but she really couldn't think of any Zen Master Go Ruang. Her heart gradually became anxious. Although this Yu family's little handsome boy was extravagant, he wasn't a fool. It was good for her to earn some extra money, but if she angered him. Now there weren't many people in the office who could help her. In the midst of her anxiety, the girl suddenly saw the mottled dog at Wang Lu's feet, gnawing on a bone. Her eyes couldn't help but shine. I don't know the person you're looking for, but I can give you a piece of information. The girl said somewhat proudly, in this Moral Enlightenment City, or even the surroundings of the Grand Cloud Mountain, it's best not to release your spirit pets so openly, especially spirit dogs. Wang Lu asked, what's the reason for this? The girl cautiously leaned forward and softly said, it's because of the Beastmaster School. You know the Beastmaster School, right? Recently they've been collecting all kinds of spirit pets, especially spirit dogs. They collect them on site and they even take them by force. Wang Lu smiled and kicked the stupid dog's hind leg. Collecting spirit dogs? They probably don't like this kind of mottled breed. The girl shook her head. It's hard to say. I heard that as long as they have intelligence they can be classified as spirit pets. They'll collect them. Seems like they're making some big move. Wang Lu asked, are they planning to make 100-dog feast? The girl was taken aback. Don't talk nonsense. However, the warning came too late. From outside the building they heard two cold snorts. Two white-clothed women coldly looked at each other. The Wanxian League girl was startled and quickly said, today the office is closing early, I'm going to close. Wang Lu didn't care. He patted Lu Li who was eating snacks and kicked the mottled stupid dog. Let's go. Outside the door the two white-clothed women happened to block his way. Their eyes were quite unkind. Wang Lu also looked at them. Needless to say they were most likely fellow Taoists of the Beast Master School. The two of them looked 26 or 27, and their cultivation base was around middle-level foundation establishment. Based on this speculation, even in the Beast Master School, their aptitude was only mediocre. After all, although they looked 26 or 27, they were actually more than 30 years old. Even the everlasting appearance technique couldn't save them, so their aptitude couldn't be said to be good. In particular, there was Lu Li who had been cultivating for more than 10 years. Her actual biological age was 25 or 26, but she looked exactly the same as when she was 15 or 16 years old. Moreover, it was likely that there would be no big change in her appearance. The contrast was too strong. The two middle-aged women stared at Wang Lu for a while, and then the one with the bigger face warned, be careful what you say in the future. You also have a spirit pet, so there's no need to say those cheap jokes. Then they ignored him because when they were outside the door, they also heard the origin of Wang Lu and Lu Li. The Celestial Water Lakes Yu family was not strong, but it was still an immortal cultivation family, so there was no need to make a big fuss just because of a joke. However, when she was about to turn around and leave, the other woman pulled her sleeve. The big-faced woman was slightly startled. Her eyes followed her junior sister's finger and was immediately startled. At this time, Wang Lu was not in the mood to talk nonsense with the two middle-aged women. He turned around to leave, but just as he took a step, he heard the big-faced woman behind him opened her mouth. Fellow Taoist, please wait. What the hell? Wang Lu was inexplicably shocked. In broad daylight, under the bright sky, these two ugly middle-aged women actually wanted to conspire against him? Are you Beast Master School or Yin and Yang School? Why are you so thirsty? However, the next moment, the big-faced woman pointed her finger at the mottled dog at Wang Lu's feet. May I ask, fellow Taoist, this little guy should be your pet? I wonder if you can part with it? Wang Lu frowned. Part with it? Then he kicked the stupid dog. Hey, he said he wants me to do a sterilization operation for you, what do you think? The stupid dog, woof? In a state of shock, it directly bit off the big soy sauce bone. The big-faced woman twisted her eyebrows. I mean, this thing is destined to be with my Beast Master School, so we intend to buy it. Wang Lu smiled. How much money do you want to pay? The big-faced woman hesitated for a moment. Because he could see that the opposite party was not a poor cultivator, it was unrealistic to offer too low a price. I'll pay 1,000 spirit stones. While shouting, the big-faced woman felt pain all over her body. That was her savings of several years. Wang Lu replied with a smile that said Popper Scram, turned around and was about to leave. Wait, 2,000. It was the junior sister who opened her mouth to increase the price. As a cultivator of the Beast Master School, their cultivation could not be considered high, but their ability to distinguish spirit beasts was quite good. The mottled dog at Wang Lu's feet did not look special, but there was an astonishing power hidden inside its body. Although they could not distinguish its breed, they could at least confirm that it was not an ordinary one. Such a spirit beast for a mere Yu clan to raise was really a waste. If they could take it and offer it to the elders of their school, they could enjoy endless benefits. Now, with 2,000 spirit stones, they could at least get 10 or 20 times the profit. Unfortunately, Wang Lu did not care about these 1 or 2,000 spirit stones. He walked away with large strides, without the slightest reluctance. The senior sister and junior sister looked at each other in dismay. Just as they were thinking about what other valuable things they had on them, they saw Wang Lu stop his footsteps and turn around to ask a question. Money? I don't lack it, but I want to find someone. The senior sister was overjoyed and quickly said, Rest assured, the surrounding area of the Grand Cloud Mountain has long been our Beast Master School's territory. Even if it's an insect, we can still find it. I want to find Zen Master Go Rua. Zen Master Go Rua? The woman with the big round face looked embarrassed. Obviously, she had never heard of such a baldy. The junior sister's eyes turned, but she smiled and said, I seem to have some impression of him. Wang Lu raised his eyebrows. Yes, I heard Master mention him. He's an expert. The junior sister said while carefully observing the other's reaction. Unfortunately, Wang Lu's expression was cold and she couldn't see any change. This is not the place to talk, why don't we find a place to have a cup of tea? While saying that, she tried to put on a seductive posture. This junior sister was indeed more beautiful than her senior sister. At the same time, her eyes couldn't help but flash with an ominous glint. In this moral enlightenment city, there were still a few areas where the Beast Master School could do whatever they wanted. Wang Lu was stunned for a moment. Then he very decisively reached out and put his arm around Lu Li's shoulder. Sorry, I already have someone I like. Chapter 177. Faced with Wang Lu's sudden reaction, the female cultivators of Beastmaster School were immediately stunned. The big-faced woman pointed at Wang Lu and Lu Li in a daze. You said, you have someone you like, but aren't you from the same family? Wang Lu nodded. Yes, this is my sister. I'm an incurable siscon. Every day, I have to use my sister's underwear as my pillow to sleep. Are you satisfied now? With that, he turned around and walked away, no longer paying attention to the two people who were trying to get something for nothing, but obviously had no capital and no IQ. The two people were already shocked by Wang Lu's declaration of love. Without saying a word, they stood in place. When they came back to their senses, the two people and the dog had already gone far away. Wang Lu, just now you said I'm your sister, but I'm obviously older than you. On the road, Lu Li suddenly opened her mouth and asked a question that had puzzled her for a long time. Wang Lu touched her head. But your IQ is lower than mine, so you're my sister. Oh, is that so? Lu Li nodded in understanding and tried to record this reasoning process. A moment later, she asked, what do you mean by siscon? Siscon is the one who controls the younger sister. You see, fourth uncle also told you to listen to me when you go down the mountain, right? Oh, so that's how it is? Lu Li continued to nod. What about sleeping on my sister's underwear? Wang Lu was silent for a moment. This question involves a profound cultivation method. For the current you, it's still too difficult. Later, if there's an opportunity, I'll tell you. I'm good. After dealing with Lu Li, Wang Lu decided not to stay in the Moral Enlightenment City for long. Although he managed to fool the two female cultivators of Beastmaster School, the other party obviously wouldn't give up. After all, the cultivation base of Wang Lu and Lu Li was currently high-level Qi cultivating stage. Going out, especially in a relatively chaotic place like Cloud Region, being too outstanding was also a kind of trouble. It would give the other party a reason to take risks out of desperation. The Yu clan's identity was not considered to be a deterrent within the borders of Cloud State. At least, it was not as strong as the beast-taming sect's name. Looking at it from a comprehensive point of view, there was a 70 to 80% chance that the other party would take the risk out of desperation. Speaking of fear, Wang Lu was certainly not afraid. Not to mention that the other party was merely in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Even if a middle-stage Shudan stage cultivator came, Wang Lu would still be able to deal with the opponent in 3 to 5 rounds if he was serious. However, before he went down the mountain, sect head uncle specifically looked for him and told him one thing. Wang Lu, you have been cultivating in Spirit Sword Mountain for 10 years. In these 10 years, you have surprised everyone on the mountain. Even among the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League, your performance is the best. Whether it was the cultivation method or other aspects. I don't want to say that this is necessarily a bad thing, but you're still young, so there's no need to lock your own style. This time, when you go down the mountain, I hope you can promise me one thing. No matter what problem you encounter, make a concession once. Of course, only once. After making a concession, if the other party is still aggressive, you can solve the problem in your own way. At that time, Wang Lu thought for a moment, and then asked, can this be regarded as a challenge task arranged by the sect? Sect head Taoist master said with a smile, very well, consider it as a higher requirement for your experiential learning. If you can successfully complete the challenge, naturally, you will get the corresponding reward points. In accordance with the original agreement, Wang Lu chose to make a concession in front of the office building. Of course, only in his own eyes could it be counted as a concession. Right now, Wang Lu chose to go out of the city. On one hand, although this moral enlightenment city was big, if he wanted to inquire about the news of Zen Master Go Rua, it was mostly hopeless. the Wanxian League didn't know, and neither did the Beast Master School. The identity of this Zen Master Go Ruo was much more mysterious than he expected. Perhaps only by going to the Grand Cloud Mountain himself could he find the clue. On the other hand, although according to the rules he had to choose to make a concession in the first possible conflict, but at that time, it didn't say that he couldn't fish. If he took Lu Li and the mottled dog out of the city, if the two women were tactful, then everything would be fine. If not, Wang Lu looked at Lu Li and the stupid dog beside him. After practicing the fighting method for many days on the mountain, he finally had a chance to put it to use. The female cultivator of Beast Master School did not let Wang Lu down. Not long after he went out of the city in the woods, Wang Lu was intercepted by the two of them. Of course, this wasn't strange at all because the stupid dog still had the tracking spell that they had cast on it. Beast Master School's spirit beast-related spell was one of the best in the Wanxian League. Even the cultivators of the 10,000 Arts sect often cooperated with the Beast Master School in related aspects. The cultivation of the two women was mediocre, but their technique was quite brilliant. If not for Wang Lu and Lu Li's level of cultivators, they wouldn't have been easily discovered. "Fellow Taoist, please wait." The same words were said for the second time, without the previous restraint and politeness. The two female cultivators looked solemn, as if they were afraid that others wouldn't see that they were robbers. Even the senior sister with the big round face directly took out her magical tool, a glittering golden whip. However, the first one to open her mouth was the prettier junior sister. She reluctantly hung a smile, trying to be polite before resorting to force. "Fellow Taoist, previously in the city, you left in a hurry, so I haven't had the time to finish my words. The spirit dog beside you is fated with my Beast Master School, so no matter what, I hope you can part with it." Wang Lu smiled. "Fated? Why don't you tell me about it?" That junior sister had obviously done her homework. She earnestly said, "Fellow Taoist must have heard of the reputation of my Beast Master School. In terms of training and training spirit beast, we are second to none in the 9 regions. Although your family also has its own specialty, it's not good at beast taming. And then? Your spirit dog is innately supernatural. If it can be properly trained, its future is limitless. Forgive me for my rudeness, but if you raise it like this, I'm afraid it will be wasted, a reckless waste of God's gift." And then? The junior sister frowned. And then? And then, if you really want it well, then naturally you should give it a better future, instead of using the reason of years of affection and so on to bind it. Wang Lu almost spurted out blood thinking, where did this woman find these lines? Even if I'm really a cis-con, it's absolutely impossible for me to like this human beast thing. However, after spurting out the rice, Wang Lu didn't forget to retort. According to your words, if a man really loves a woman, he must find a way to give her a strong aphrodisiac, and then take advantage of the night to throw her on the bed of a tall, rich, and handsome man. If he can get pregnant with a child in the future, there will be no lack of glory, splendor, and wealth. At the same time, a man should hide outside the window, listening to his beloved woman being fucked by a tall, rich, and handsome man. Is this the rhythm? With that, Wang Lu let go of Lu Li's ears and waited for the response of the two middle-aged women. After a while, that junior sister fiercely said, "A despicable and vulgar master like you doesn't deserve to have a spirit pet." At the same time, the magical tool in her hand gradually lit up, and the situation became more and more dangerous. Wang Lu ridiculed, "Since you want to be a whore, then don't give me a chastity arch blocking the road and snatching the dog," yet still saying it in such a dignified way, "You're really worthy to be from a small animal rights organization." The two female cultivators no longer answered. At this point, what else could they do but make their move? The two of them carefully stared at each other and found that the other party's attention was focused on the magical tool in their hand, so they couldn't help but feel relieved. They were probably the newcomers of the Yu family who had just gone out for experiential learning, so their experience was seriously insufficient. How could they focus on the cultivators of the Beast Master School? However, when they were about to sneer and make their move, they suddenly heard the girl named Yuxian say with a smile, "What a cute puppy." With that, she took 2 steps forward, bent her body, and stretched out her hand. The light distorted, and an unwilling white-haired puppy was pressed by Lu Li's hand on its head, and then it could no longer move. The complexion of the two female cultivators suddenly changed. The invisible white-haired dog was the most proud spirit pet of senior sister Qin Dongji. Its ability to hide itself was so great that even shoot-on-stage cultivators would not be able to detect it. It was a good weapon for sneak attacks. Unexpectedly, before the fight had even started, it had been pulled out by the opponent's seemingly innocent little girl. At this time, looking at Yu Xian's innocent smile, the two female cultivators of the Beastmaster School felt a chill in their hearts. This person, is she really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Wang Lu was not surprised at all. Not to mention that invisible dog, even he could see through it. With Lu Li's heaven-defying insight, even in the Spirit Sword Mountain without the King Pill level method, it would be impossible to hide from her eyes. And these two female cultivators of the Beastmaster School had the arrogance of robbing them, but their strength was too low. Xianer. Wang Lu resisted the nauseating feeling all over his body and came up with such a name. Huh. Lu Li didn't care at all. She happily teased the puppy in her hand. Seeing that the other party was trembling in fear, she even tried to feed it snacks. In this urgent situation, it actually showed a bit of childlike warmth. But Wang Lu's next sentence completely destroyed this atmosphere. The one in your hand is tonight's dinner. Lu Li gawked and subconsciously made a swallowing action. The invisible white dog that was stroked by her delicate hand finally couldn't bear the despair and simply fainted. Junior sister, do it? Qin Dongji roared. The whip in her hand turned into a massive golden cloud. Even though most of her ability came from her spirit beast, as a foundation establishment cultivator of a high-rank sect, her own skill was definitely not weak. Unfortunately, it depended on who she was compared with. Xianer, do it? Although the order came later than the opponent, Lu Li's reaction was too fast. Before Wang Lu's voice fell, the girl's flying sword had already directly pierced through Qin Dongji's golden cloud, breaking her original magical tool and causing the woman to suddenly spurt out a mouthful of blood. Then the sword light turned and deftly landed on the side of the junior sister's neck. With just a touch, her whole body's defensive spell was completely broken. The junior sister didn't even have the time to call her spirit beast for help before she could no longer say even half a word. After defeating the two female cultivators, Lu Li retrieved her flying sword and single-handedly picked up the unconscious puppy. After sizing it up, she somewhat embarrassedly turned her head and asked, "Do you really want to eat this little guy tonight?" Before Wang Lu had the time to speak, he heard Lu Li pleadingly said, "Don't eat it, okay, brother?" Brother? Wang Lu felt a buzzing sound in his head. You idiot actually used your killing move on your own people at this time? Chapter 178. When the stupid Lu Li unleashed her big move on her own people, Wang Lu really couldn't resist it. He froze for a moment, and it was at this moment that the two female cultivators of Beastmaster School narrowed their eyes. Go? Then two golden lights flashed. As a low-level disciple of Beastmaster School, the life-saving talisman was activated. The escape talisman wrapped the two people into a ball and quickly flew away. Lu Li looked at the ball of golden light that flew away. Although she could immediately intercept it, the girl didn't pay attention to it. Instead, she continued to stare at Wang Lu with her big watery eyes, expressing her pleading will. Wang Lu unceremoniously reached out and slapped her on the head. Idiot! Because she had long been accustomed to such criticism, Lu Li didn't try to feel wronged anymore. She just sincerely asked, "I'm sorry, did I do something wrong?" Wang Lu sighed. Two things. First, you're one of the top sword cultivators in the Lingzhen school and even in the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions. You must have your own strength of character, reserved and domineering aura. In short, don't act spoiled. Second, do I look like a person who will eat anything? With that, Wang Lu pointed at the little white dog that was left behind by the two female cultivators of Beastmaster School. This thing is our captive. I'll treat you to something else for dinner. Lu Li breathed a sigh of relief. I know you're the best, brother. Wang Lu suddenly felt an irresistible chill from his non-phase sword bone. Don't call me brother. But didn't you say I'm your sister? My sister can't be so cute. Later on you can just call me senior brother. In any case, I'm the lead disciple of the sect, so I'm half a level lower than you. Okay. Although she couldn't understand it, Lu Li had an excellent advantage, which was that she never asked why. After dealing with Lu Li, Wang Lu splashed the captive invisible white dog with cold water. Resuscitation, the puppy immediately turned invisible and tried to escape. As a result, just as half of its body turned invisible, it saw a pair of red eyes staring at it. It was a spirit dog with mixed fur that was about the same size as him. It looked silly and had a piece of marinated bone in its mouth. However, the small body seemed to hide a hell. The terrifying might it gave off almost caused the puppy's soul to freeze, and the instinctive technique it cast was disrupted and rendered ineffective. The mottled dog glanced at it and snorted in disdain. Its mouth continued to chew on the bone as if it was saying, "If you dare to run, this bone will be your end." Little White whimpered and raised its head to look at Wang Lu and Lu Li. Its eyes revealed a begging look. Wang Lu saw that the other party was already well behaved, so he nodded and said, "Can you speak human language?" The little white dog shook its head in fear. "Don't worry, Bien, you translate." Wang Lu kicked the stupid dog. The stupid dog unwillingly shook its body and spat out the bone. "Really King troublesome?" Then it barked at the little white dog. The little white dog trembled and whimpered for a while, and then pitifully waited for its punishment. Bien pondered for a moment and then said to Wang Lu, "This grandson is called Little White, the spirit pet of that female cultivator. He is willing to surrender, but because of the contract with Master he can't say anything about Master and the sect." Wang Lu was amused. This little thing has no moral integrity, surrendering so quickly. As for the contract, Xianer, do it. Lu Li reached out and touched Little White's head. The little thing suddenly felt a sharp sword intent enter its primordial spirit along the top of its head. However, it cleverly avoided all the vital parts and directly touched an invisible extension line. The next moment, Little White felt its primordial spirit loosen, and a certain force that had bound it for many years disappeared. The contract between it and its master was actually lifted. Lu Li's brilliant sword heart could cut everything in the world, and the contract force of Beastmaster School was naturally no exception. Without the binding of the contract, Little White soon sold out its master's situation without any moral integrity. Wang Lu had no interest in the privacy of the two middle-aged women, but their motive for not hesitating to become bandits to intercept the dog was very interesting. In fact, from the beginning, Wang Lu thought that it was not unusual for the Beastmaster School to be hated by the people in the Moral Enlightenment City. However, for the two middle-aged women to openly rob the road, there must be some interest driving them. No matter what, the Beastmaster School was still a righteous sect. For their disciples to openly rob a cultivator from an immortal cultivator family, the risk they had to bear was really huge. Without any interest driving them, it was impossible. And from Little White's mouth, Wang Lu learned that the Beastmaster School was recently carrying out a large-scale operation. The entire division from top to bottom, nearly 1,000 people were involved in it. And the big-faced woman and other disciples were assigned a strange task: to collect various kinds of spirit dogs and bring them back to the mountain. Moreover, this task was quite urgent. For this reason, the elder who was in charge of the big-faced woman even clearly said, "As long as it's a good dog, no matter what, bring it back to the mountain, there will be a generous reward. If anything happens, I will take responsibility for it." Forcing a prestigious sect to issue a robbery declaration, it could be seen that the Beastmaster School was really in desperate need of spirit dogs. However, this was even more strange. In the Wanxian League, among the tens of thousands of sects, there was probably no one who was better at taming spirit beasts than the Beastmaster School. Moreover, the Beastmaster School had always been the biggest seller in the spirit beast market, so how could they be in urgent need of spirit dogs? Unfortunately, if he continued to ask, Little White would be powerless. After all, he was just a dog, so he didn't know too much about it. However, this information was enough for Wang Lu. Since the Beastmaster School's demand for spirit dogs has reached the level of hunger, then we probably don't need to do anything. The reputation value will come knocking on our door. At the same time, on the Grand Cloud Mountain, Qin Dongji and her junior sister were trembling. Lowering their heads and looking down, they resisted the anger of their master to keep standing. In other words, not only did you fail to bring back that rare breed, you even lost your own spirit dog? A tall and sturdy man with a bare upper body and bulging muscles coldly questioned. Qin Dongji replied with a trembling voice, "Disciple is incompetent and has lost face for the sect. I am willing to accept punishment from the elder." That sturdy man sneered, "Punishment? Even if I dismember the two of you into 10,000 pieces, so what? It sounds nice, but if I really punish you according to the sect rules, you two will still cry and beg me to spare your lives." The senior sister and junior sister's hearts sank, simultaneously considering whether or not they should kneel down and beg for mercy. "Forget it, this time the opponent's strength is too much stronger than you. Even my sect's beast-taming contract was broken by them, so it's not strange that you are not their match. Only, when did the Celestial Water Lakes U family produce such a strong disciple?" The elder muttered to himself, his brows gradually knitted together. The junior sister boldly said, "Master, although those two people are powerful, their cultivation is still low, so there's nothing to worry about." Moreover, they broke the contract thinking that their trick succeeded, but in fact they revealed a flaw. Little White comes from the beast taming school, so it's not difficult for us to trace its position. If we follow the clues, we will definitely be able to find that strange spirit dog. The muscular elder glanced at her. You're going to find it? The junior sister was suddenly speechless. This disciple's cultivation is low, I'm afraid they are not their match, so you want me to act? Humph, this kind of aristocratic family's disciple is the most troublesome. If you beat the young one, the old one will come out. Although the rumor says that the Celestial Water Lakes U family is only a marginal aristocratic family, but to be able to cultivate such a disciple, how can it be simple? Right now, our branch's matters are urgent, so there's no need to complicate matters. But it's strange, why did they come to the Grand Cloud Mountain? The junior sister boldly said, I remember that person said he wanted to find a person called Zen Master Go Ruo. Zen Master Go Ruo? The elder frowned and repeated this name a few times. Suddenly, his expression changed. Zen Master Go Ruo? F***ck, it's clearly Zen Master Dog Meat, that son of a bitch. You're even giving me an accent? You two, tell me the characteristics of those two people in detail again. After listening to the two female disciples, the elder still had no clue, but after thinking about it, his anger won over his usual caution. Forget it, let's first capture those two people. If we can hang that bastard, that's naturally the best. If we recognize the wrong person, worst comes to worst, I'll go to Celestial Water Lake to apologize. The Yu family won't be able to say anything. The two female disciples' hearts immediately calmed down, but the junior sister rolled her eyes and asked, Master, that strange mongrel spirit dog. Their Celestial Water Lake has never been good at beast taming. Giving that rare spirit dog to them is a reckless waste of natural resources. If they really love that spirit dog, they should know the principle of obediently letting go. In other words, after capturing the two of them this time, he naturally wouldn't spit out the spirit hound or whatever. Seeing that her master agreed to help, the big-faced female cultivator immediately raised her eyebrows. Her magical weapon was destroyed by Lu Li's sword, which made her quite distressed. After thinking for a while, she suggested, Master, I think that Yu Xian's flying sword is also extraordinary. Do you want to? The elder angrily said, Our Beast Master School is not a bandit sect. If you want that spirit dog, you still have a good reason to do so, but if you want to take other people's magical weapon for your own use, how do you explain that? Qin Dongji was immediately dumbfounded. However, the quick-witted junior sister said, Those two people have a spirit dog and a top-notch magical weapon. Presumably, they are the talented disciples that the Yu family has nurtured. Usually they are arrogant, so they don't know the severity of their actions. It's normal for their magical weapon to be damaged. Upon hearing this, Qin Dongji thought that this was nonsense. However, when she turned around, she saw her master gently smiled without saying anything. Immediately she realized the truth. Then she sighed at the gap between them. No wonder her junior sister's cultivation base was slightly lower than hers, but their cultivation base was basically the same. Moreover, her master liked her more. Well then, let me see how good those two Yu family's geniuses are. After saying that, he stood up. However, at this time, the complexion of this brawny man changed when he heard the summon from the division Great Elder. What? The target has appeared? Okay, I'll go. He turned around and said to the two disciples, Senior brother is looking for me, so I can't refuse. As for you two, forget it, I'll let Silverback accompany you. With that, the elder's feet exerted force and like a cannonball, he soared into the sky and flew away. The two female cultivators were dumbfounded as they watched a gorilla that was taller and sturdier than their master slowly walk in. Each step it took made the room slightly tremble. The gorilla walked to the front of the two female cultivators. His condescending eyes carried a trace of disdain and irritation. The two female cultivators greeted him while trembling with fear. Greetings, Uncle Silverback. I've just heard from Senior Brother. You two lead the way. I'm going to take down those two juniors and that spirit dog. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.